This story begins on a dark night where a man is looking for something his girlfriend lost. The young man wonders how the girl managed to lose her cell phone. Then he decides to call her number to try to locate it. And then the phone starts ringing in a sewer. However, beneath it there were frog eggs, and the couple wonders why those things were there. After that, the man stretches his arm to grab the phone. However, he ends up paralyzed. The girl gets distracted while playing with her dog. Then she sees her boyfriend still kneeling on the ground and asks why he was taking so long. But the young man remains silent. Afraid, the girl asks if he was okay. The man turns around and wonders what was happening to him. Those eggs were getting bigger and eating his hands, spreading rapidly throughout his body. The girl gets scared and decides to run away with her dog. But during her escape, she trips and falls down a ravine. Looking around, she realizes that there were several of those strange eggs in that place. On a sunny day, a boy is taking a bus trip to Seoul. That was the day of his school trip and also of his first time in Seoul. However, he still felt bad because the girl he liked was sitting far from him. He couldn't talk to her properly at school, but since it was a trip, opportunities could arise. Then someone calls the boy, who was daydreaming. It was Kim Joo, who asks if the young man wanted something to eat, but he declines. Then Kim Joo gets distracted by a new release on his phone. After that, a girl stands up asking for everyone's attention. With her camera, she asks who would like to participate in her vlog. Then she starts recording with the class. But Yeonwoo doesn't pay attention because he is thinking about whether he will be able to get closer to So-yeon. When they arrive at their destination, the students continue filming their travel vlog. The teacher warns the student that the streets are very dangerous, so she shouldn't be filming. Yeonwoo, on the other hand, observes the city and thinks about how he had the impression that Seoul was a complicated place. Soon after, the teacher tells the class they will stop to rest. Hongmi continues filming her vlogs with the rest of the students. Seeing how popular the girl is because of her videos, the protagonist wonders if he should start doing the same to get So-yeon's attention. Kim Joo appears, asking if the young man wasn't thinking about doing that childish thing, and says he is not interested in joining the kingdom of extroverts. After all, introverts like them would be destroyed. Then the protagonist notices that Hongmi is filming So-yeon, who in turn tells her friend's followers that it was her first time in Seoul and that she had wanted to visit the city since childhood. Then she and the protagonist briefly exchange glances. The boy becomes embarrassed and looks away. However, the girl doesn't care and goes back to talking with her friends. Soon after, some boys arrive to talk to the girls on the trip. One of the boys takes Hongmei's camera and introduces himself as Kang Ji, the class captain, and gives them tips on how to get by in Seoul. While watching that, Yeonwoo thinks about how he would like to be like those guys. Then Hongmei approaches the protagonist and Kim Joo, saying that she had not yet introduced them to her followers, and scolds them when she notices they are watching an anime during the trip. Kim Joo confidently stands up to introduce himself to the girl's followers. However, the girl doesn't like the way the boy speaks and decides to cut to Yeonwoo. Then she asks the young man to look at the camera and say something. The protagonist gets nervous but introduces himself as a third-year student at Chungang High School. While introducing himself, the boy gets distracted again by So-yeon and thinks about how much he wants to be near her. Soon after, the entire class is having fun around the city, and the teacher asks everyone to gather for a group photo. After that, some pigeons fly toward one of the girls. The young girl, in turn, shows her disgust for the animals. One of the pigeons notices some feathers in a sewer. As it gets closer, those eggs appear again and begin consuming the bird. The protagonist watches in horror from a distance. Soon after, a boy appears, asking Yeonwoo for a favor. The protagonist, in turn, questions what the favor is, but the boy responds that it is nothing too important and that he will tell him when they get home. Meanwhile, in that sewer, the pigeon has already been completely consumed by those eggs. In the late afternoon, the group arrives at the hotel where they will be staying. The teacher asks the class representative to keep an eye on the kids while she goes to get the room keys. Hongmei tells her followers that she will have to wait for the teacher at the hotel entrance. Then she notices Yeonwoo sitting in a corner, looking at his phone. The boy checks the message group conversations of his classmates, and he notices that So-yeon has changed her profile picture. Then Hongmei suddenly appears without the young man noticing, asking why he is staring at his phone so much. Even with the screen covered by the light of the place, the girl still manages to see a picture and questions who that person is. The protagonist gets nervous and replies that he is just looking at the photos of the people in the group. However, the girl does not seem to believe what the boy says and asks him to hand over his phone. Soon after, one of the girls calls Hongmei to see her classmates practicing for the talent show. The young girl, in turn, decides to go film her friends but tells the protagonist that she will see him later. Yeonwoo panics and questions why she had to be suspicious of something, as Hongmei was in all the school groups. Soon after, Kang Ji appears and says he has been looking for the protagonist for a long time, and he asks if the boy has forgotten what he said earlier. After that, Yeonwoo follows his class representative to a hidden room. Kang Ji then opens his backpack and shows the young man that it is full of alcoholic drinks, and he says that most likely the rest of their classmates have also brought drinks. The boy says they will be having a party that night, and they don't want to lose everything at once. So he needs someone to carry that backpack for the time being, and even if the protagonist gets caught with the drinks, he will become a hero for the class. Yang Wu, however, shows no interest in that plan and says he is leaving. In a desperate attempt to convince the boy, Kangji asks if he is interested in any particular girl, saying that everyone in the class will be at the party, and he also mentions that he invited all the girls. The protagonist freezes and wonders if So Yeon will also be at the party. Kangji smiles and says that the event will happen no matter what, and that if the boy doesn't go, he will be missing a big opportunity. Yang Wu ends up falling into the manipulation of his class representative and decides to carry the backpack with the drinks. Soon after, the teacher appears, asking the students to gather so they can get their room keys, and she introduces the assistant teacher, who is there to help guide them. The protagonist remains seated in silence, but when he looks ahead, he notices that Hong Mei is staring at him suspiciously. After that, Kim Ju appears, asking why his friend looks so nervous, but Yang Wu in turn says it's nothing. Then Kim Ju shows his friend the deck of cards he brought for the trip. Not wanting to be left behind, the protagonist decides to show his friend what he has inside the backpack. The student panics and starts screaming, and Yang Wu, in turn, tells the boy to stop, because if the assistant teacher notices, he could get caught. Even so, the teacher approaches the boys, asking to see what is inside the backpack. In a small room, the protagonist's teacher looks very disappointed with him and asks if that is everything he brought. With sadness in his eyes, the protagonist replies that it is all he has. The woman, in turn, wants to resolve the matter when they return to school and says that the young man should be prepared to bring his parents. Frustrated, the boy leaves the room and thinks about how his mother will kill him. As he walks through the hallways, he ends up running into Kang Ji, who in turn hugs the young man, saying he was very worried. Soon after, Yang Wu realizes that the boy is carrying a backpack full of drinks and asks where the party will be. Kang Ji says he still hasn't decided where they will go because the teacher is still watching, and he says that when they find a good place, he will call the boy. In his room at night, the protagonist realizes that he has been deceived, and he gets nervous thinking that in the place where everyone was gathered, So Yeon was probably there too. In the morning, the group gathers at Namsan Tower in Seoul, where they will take their cable car ride. Kim Ju asks if his friend is nervous because it's his first time in a cable car. However, Yang Wu doesn't pay much attention to him because he is still wondering if So Yeon went out the night before, thinking that somehow he feels like he is gradually drifting away from her. After that, the boy sees Kang Ji and gets irritated because he has been ignoring him since last night, and that he was only trying to take advantage of him from the beginning. Then he thinks that for some reason, he doesn't believe he will be able to get closer to So Yeon during this trip. Kim Ju shouts to everyone that this is the protagonist's first time in a cable car, so he is scared. So Yeon smiles at the boy and says that it is her first time too. Seeing that the girl is talking to him, the young man gets nervous and starts stuttering. After that, a friend of the girl asks about the story with the drinks the day before. So Yeon becomes interested in the subject and says that she was very surprised, and she says he was amazing for not being scared. Hearing those words, the protagonist feels embarrassed because it is the first time the girl has been interested in him. Inside the cable car, Yang Wu thinks about how he can still continue talking to So Yeon, and that, at this pace, he will be able to get closer to her. Soon after, while the students take pictures of the ride, they receive an alert message on their phones about an unidentified virus in Seoul. After this message, a pigeon crashes hard into the glass of the cable car, scaring the young people. Several other pigeons also crash into the cable car, causing their virus to spread onto it. As they watch the situation, the students comment on how disgusting it is. The protagonist, in turn, notices that what is on the pigeon looks like frog eggs. Then one of the eggs falls inside the cable car through a crack in the glass caused by the pigeon. The young people panic and decide to run to the back. In the middle of the commotion, the protagonist accidentally steps on So Yeon's foot and apologizes to her. Yang Wu wonders what he should do because he is very close to the girl. The teacher shouts at her class because she is being crushed by the crowd. After that, a boy approaches the frog egg and comments that it seems to be moving. The cable car finally reaches its destination, and the staff members wonder what that mess on its glass is. One of the men apologizes for the inconvenience and asks the group to leave. Hong Mei takes out her camera and starts recording, saying that she's arrived at the top of the tower and that something strange has happened. The protagonist remains inside the cable car, thinking that this is a good opportunity to talk to So Yeon, because he has been acting like an idiot so far, and if he leaves now, he doesn't know when he will have another chance like this. And then the boy decides once again to apologize for stepping on the girl's foot. The girl in turn says it's okay, and that he has already apologized. To change the subject, Yang Wu talks about the pigeons crashing into the glass and asks if this is what a cable car ride is like. So Yoon asks if the protagonist wants to say something to her. And just as the boy is about to invite her to something, a scream is heard outside. A student is lying on the ground and her friends ask what happened. The girl explains that one of those eggs burst and spread everywhere. A classmate walking behind the girl notices that something is on his leg. The student panics when she looks at her leg because those eggs seem to have stuck to her. Scared, the young girl starts hitting her leg with her bag. The rest of her classmates run away in fear from the situation. The girl ends up falling down the stairs, and her friends rush to help her, asking if she's okay. As they lift her up, she asks what happened up there. However, when they look at her face, they notice that some of those strange eggs have splattered on her. One of the staff members approaches the student from the upper floor, asking what is happening. The girl panics and grabs the man's arm, begging him to help her. As a result, those eggs also stick to the man's skin, and he ends up running away. The remaining students decide to go back inside the cable car after seeing that situation. Kim-ju asks what is happening outside. Looking through the window of the cable car, they see the student being consumed more and more by those eggs. Hong-mei tries to go out, but one of her classmates stops her, saying that those things are growing like a monster. The girl gets irritated, asking if the boy is saying that her friend is a monster. Right after, the student bangs on the cable car window, begging for help, saying that it hurts. The students are terrified as they watch their friend being consumed. At the entrance of the observatory, the teacher talks to a security guard, asking where her students are. The man responds that she just needs to go up the stairs outside. After that, the students run past the woman in a panic. The teacher sees one of her students lying on the ground and approaches, asking if she's okay. However, she's already infected, but still begs the woman for help, who also ends up getting caught right after. Inside the cable car, the students kneel in a corner, avoiding looking at their friend. One of the boys decides to look to see what's happening, and he ends up getting scared, making his classmates panic as well. The protagonist thinks about how he cannot stop getting chills. After that, he sees So-hyun trembling with fear and asks if she's okay. However, everyone's phone receives an emergency notification at the same time about a virus in the city. Meanwhile, around the tower, citizens are running away from the infected. In a panic, the students start calling their parents, asking what they should do. However, one of the boys, when looking back, notices that the classmate outside is moving. Seeing that, they are surprised because they thought she was dead, and they wonder if she's okay. A boy asks Young-woo to go to the door to see if she is alright since he is the closest one. Seeing how So-yeon is, the protagonist decides to approach and ask if she is okay. As he approaches the door, the boy asks if she is alright. However, the girl remains silent. A student tells him to speak louder because she probably can't hear him because of the glass. Right after, the students receive another emergency message. When Young-woo returns his attention to the girl, he realizes how terrifying she looks. Soon after, some people climb the stairs to reach the cable car, trying to escape the infected, but they end up encountering the student, who in turn attacks the man standing in front of her. The boys inside the cable car watch the situation in horror. Then the man being infected tells his friend to run away because he will hold the creature off. Inside the cable car, one of the boys wonders if they shouldn't help him. Kim-ju panics and says they shouldn't do that because they would all be in danger. Seeing the whole situation, Young-woo decides to lock the door for everyone's safety. After that, one of the people outside bangs on the door desperately, begging them to open it. But even so, the creature attacks the man. The students watch the terrifying scene in complete shock. Young-woo is paralyzed upon seeing what his classmate has become. Soon after, some civilians climb the tower near the cable car and end up encountering the infected student. The creature gets distracted by those people and starts chasing them. After that, one of the pigeons that crash into the cable car comes back to life. Kim-ju begins to panic at the situation. One of the boys covers his mouth to keep him quiet to avoid attracting the creature back. Hong-mei starts crying because of the man they refuse to save. The young man responds that if they had opened the door, they would all be dead. Another student opens the roof of the cable car, saying that they should take this opportunity to escape. But his classmate replies that they wouldn't be able to escape the creature if they encountered it. Soon after, the protagonist notices that So-yeon is scared, and the girl, in turn, asks if he wants to say something to her since he keeps staring at her. Young-woo gets nervous and says that he was just wondering if she was okay. The young girl says she's fine and asks him to stop staring. The boy says that they shouldn't leave the cable car because it is too dangerous, and that all they have to do is wait there until the rescue arrives. However, a girl tells him to stop saying what they should do because he has no right to say anything. She says that he didn't help Gil and just ran away instead of helping her. The young man gets furious upon hearing that and asks why she is blaming everything on him. The girl says she is right because he also stopped them from helping her friend. The boy loses it and shouts that he did what was best for everyone. Hong-mei says they should stop fighting. After that, the students hear someone calling through the cable car radio, identifying themselves as the control room. The cable car begins to move. Meanwhile, Hong-mei tries to communicate with someone from the class chat group, but no one responds. So Yeon starts crying, worried about her classmates. The boy says that maybe they don't have time to worry about others since they don't even know what's happening throughout the city, and as soon as they arrive, he will go straight home. Then the cable car suddenly stops moving and the boys are confused about what happened. They decide to use the radio to inform the control room worker about the stop. Then the cable car starts moving again, allowing them to finally reach the building. However, the building is already completely overtaken by the virus. When they arrive at the station, the teenagers scream upon seeing the state of the place. Then So-yeon notices something on the glass. It is an infected person who ends up breaking the glass and slowly entering the cable car. The students decide to kick the glass to escape. After that, the infected finally enters the cable car completely. However, the young people finally manage to break the glass. But the creature doesn't give up and continues chasing them. So Yeon ends up tripping and falling to the ground while trying to escape. However, the protagonist returns to help her and together they manage to escape. As they descend the stairs, the students encounter a terrifying scene. While going down, So-yeon asks the boy to wait a minute because her leg is injured. Yang-woo asks if it was his fault, but the girl replies that he doesn't need to worry about it since she probably got hurt while escaping from the cable car. Soon after, their classmates run back up the stairs. The protagonist asks why they are coming back, and a boy explains that there were many of those monsters on the ground floor. Shortly after, the teenagers finally reach a floor that appears to be free of the virus. However, the infected from the cable car is still chasing the group, following So-yeon's blood trail. The students take advantage of the moment of calm to try to contact their parents. One of the boys sees that everyone on the internet is talking about those monsters. Yang-woo manages to call his mother and tells her that he is trapped on the second floor of the cable car building. She, in turn, asks him to be careful and not leave the area. Meanwhile, the girls help So-yeon with her bleeding, cleaning her wounds. Kim-joo asks the protagonist if he has any spare change to use in the vending machine. Yang-woo asks if his friend is okay. The boy replies that he shouldn't have gone on this trip and now regrets coming. Then the protagonist thinks that even in this chaotic situation, he still managed to help So-yeon. After that, the young man finds the blood trail the girl left and decides to follow it to see where it leads. However, he ends up encountering the creature that is tracking the blood trail. The infected tries to attack the young man, but he barely manages to dodge it. The students start running in panic toward an exit. Kim-joo is in the lead and, in a desperate act, tries to close the exit door. But Baekmad manages to push the door open just in time. After that selfish act, the boy confronts his classmate. However, the argument is interrupted when the boys realize they have returned to the cable car, discovering that each floor is connected to the entrance and exit, meaning they just went in a complete circle. Hannah reaches her classmates, completely exhausted from running up the stairs. However, they realize that the rest of the girls were left behind. So Yeon and Hongmai are still on the lower floor, hiding from the creature. The girl wonders if they should just stay there. Hongmai replies that she believes the monster can't see them, so they just need to hide until it leaves. So Yeon, however, holds back her screams because of her leg injury. However, the infected can still smell her blood. The teenagers go down to the lower floor, searching for their friends. The creature is getting closer and closer to where So-yeon is hiding. But before it can attack her, Yang-woo appears, drawing attention. The monster tries to charge at the boy, but ends up missing. Then the protagonist decides to lure the infected back to the cable car. However, he ends up closing the door of the place to try to delay it. When he stops running, the young man wonders if that thing has stopped chasing him. As he descends the stairs, he keeps thinking about the crazy action he just took. When he finally reaches the lower floor, the protagonist does not find his colleagues. Looking out the window of the building, Yang-woo sees his friends escaping through the parking lot. Before escaping, So-yeon sees the boy watching them from the window. But even so, she decides to abandon him. The protagonist takes a deep breath and thinks about what he should do now and why his colleagues left him behind. Then the boy tries to contact his friends, informing them that he is still in the building. However, he is interrupted by another disaster alert on his phone. Meanwhile, the young man hears noises coming from the men's bathroom. It was Kim-joo, who had also been left behind, wondering if he was going to die there. Yang-woo meets his friend and asks if he was also abandoned. And the boy in turn responds that he was the one who abandoned his colleagues because they were annoying him. Happy to see his friend again, the protagonist hugs him, saying it was good to see him. After that, the dude searches the floor and Yang-woo warns that the infected was no longer there. Kim-joo comments that they should lock the door because he believed it would return. Then the protagonist stares at the window that their colleagues broke to escape. His friend asks if he knows how they fled. Yang-woo says he saw the group escaping through the parking lot. Kim-joo gets irritated and says that they abandoned the two of them as if they were nothing, and that they couldn't even escape from there because those monsters had gathered in the parking lot after the incident. The protagonist says that his friend only stayed behind because he was afraid to jump. After a while, the boys take a moment to rest, and Kim-joo questions how long they would stay like that. Yang-woo comments that they had already been there for about an hour. Right after, the boy tries to contact the police. However, the call is redirected to voicemail. Kim-joo starts to get nervous, and the protagonist comments that he could calm down because his parents were already on their way. But the boy responds that his parents wouldn't change anything about the situation. After that, Yang-woo receives a link to a news report stating that some areas of Seoul have been declared special disaster zones by the government, and that health authorities were quickly dealing with the situation by deploying military forces to the roads and buildings around the affected areas. Political groups predict that martial law will be declared for the first time in 40 years. Kim-joo panics upon hearing about the situation he and his friend are in. After that, the protagonist notices through the window that a building not far away is on fire, and that a firefighting team is quickly heading to the scene. Kim-joo doesn't care about that, saying they weren't coming to save them, and that if he could, he would burn everything down. Hearing his friend's words, Yang-woo gets the idea to set the place on fire, but for that, he will need the trash can. Then the dude finds the trash can where they will look for something to start a fire. Kim-joo questions if that plan is serious, and the protagonist explains that if they set fire there, the firefighters would come to rescue them. After that, the young man manages to find a lighter in the trash. However, he believes he is out of gas because he can't light it. But the duo's peace is interrupted again by that same infected. However, the creature remains still in the corridor. The protagonist says he believes it won't move, and he comments that it seemed to be getting bigger and bigger. Seeing the disgusting appearance of the infected, Kim Joo starts feeling sick. Then he asks if his friend is really going to start a fire to get the firefighters' attention. Yang Woo then decides to go to the cable car floor to start his plan, and he explains that he couldn't start the fire on the lower floor because they would be suffocated by the smoke. Right after, the protagonist tells Kim Joo that they were on the second floor and that each floor had its own entrance and exit. While one person distracted the monster at the entrance, the other would go up through the exit and set fire to the third floor. And since the cable car is outside, there were no sprinklers, so the flames would spread. Kim Joo is then responsible for keeping an eye on the monster. Yang Woo begins to do his part, setting fire to papers on the upper floor. However, a creature appears on top of the cable car. The boy panics and throws a burning bag at the monster, which in turn ends up catching fire. After that, the boy receives a call from Kim Joo, warning him that the infected from the lower floor was coming up. The protagonist says that while he was lighting the fire, a monster tried to attack him and got hit, so now his exit was in flames, leaving him with no way to return. Kim Joo warns that he needs to get down quickly because there wasn't much time. Then he looks back and sees the infected approaching. And now Yang Woo was trapped between the flames and that infected. Desperate, the boy takes off his shirt to try to put out the flames. However, the monster charges at the young man, who in turn runs to the edge of the cable car. The boy then remembers that fire is capable of killing those things, deciding next to throw his burning shirt. But he ends up missing the infected because of the wind. The monster, after not being hit, advances toward the young man, but is stopped by Kim Joo, who hits it from behind with burning paper balls. Seeing that opportunity, the boy tells his friend to run away from there. Both then quickly descend the building's stairs. During the escape, Kim Joo ends up tripping on the steps and falls near one of those slimes that caused the infection. Yang Woo helps him up and asks if he's okay. However, the boy gets angry and blames the protagonist for the plan going wrong since he insisted on starting the fire alone. Yang Woo, in turn, also gets angry and says that he was like a scared little puppy who couldn't do anything because he was afraid, and that it was pathetic for him to say that he abandoned his friends when in reality, he was terrified of jumping with them. Then the argument is interrupted by an infected climbing the stairs, but the boys manage to reach a safe floor and close the door. However, even so, the monster starts squeezing through the door's gaps. The young men then decide to run in another direction. However, there were already infected trying to enter through the windows. Yang Woo notices that all those monsters around the building were trying to get in. Right after, the protagonist gets an idea upon seeing the fire alarm. While the boy tries to light his lighter, he asks Kim Joo to find something to set on fire. After that, one of the infected enters through the window that the students broke to escape. In a desperate act, Kim Joo throws a potted plant at the creature. The boy feels confident and teases the protagonist for calling him a scared puppy, and says that he wasn't as clumsy as they thought. However, while the boy keeps bragging, he fails to notice the infected getting up behind him. Yang Woo tries to warn his friend, but it was already too late. The monster starts attacking the young man, and he, in turn, screams for help. To try to help, the protagonist keeps trying to light the lighter. Then the second infected finally squeezes entirely through the door's gap. The boy manages to set a plant on fire and decides to use it to defend himself, successfully landing a hit on that monster's face, and realizes that he was right and those creatures really were vulnerable to fire. Noticing that the infected was getting weaker, the protagonist decides to throw an entire burning plant at it. Then he watches as his friend's body burns along with that creature. Yang Woo kneels and starts crying while apologizing for his colleague's fate. After that, he gets startled because the infected were still entering the building. In an abandoned bus in the city, Hong Mai talks to her viewers and asks if they were all okay. Baek Mei questions how the girl could be doing a live stream in a moment like that. The girl explains to her followers that at the beginning, there were more classmates on that school trip, but now those inside that bus were the only survivors. A person comments on the live stream that some of those cells had a core inside them, and that they saw a video on the internet warning people to be more careful with the ones that had cores. Then another viewer asks if the boys were near the station, and Hong Mei asks why. The person says that the news reported there was a temporary shelter at the station for the affected areas, but they weren't sure since they didn't live in the city. The students are surprised by that information. After that, the viewer explains that some areas of Seoul were closed, but they could still take a train to reach the station. Hong Mai thanks her follower for that information. Right after, Baek Mei asks all of her friends to duck down because an infected was passing by the window. The monster remains still, staring at the bus. The boys wonder why the creature isn't moving in fear that it heard them. Luckily, the infected ends up getting distracted by a cat walking on the sidewalk. Then the students begin planning how they would get to the station, since they were 30 minutes away and the outside was very dangerous. So Yeon interrupts the conversation to ask what they were going to do about Yang Woo, because when they were escaping, she saw the boy watching them from the second floor, and he was probably expecting them to return. However, Baek Mai says that was a terrible idea and that the best thing to do was to head to Seoul Station. and explains that he was going to abandon the protagonist because he was probably already dead. Meanwhile, the cable car tower is completely on fire. Yang-woo falls to the ground due to the thick smoke. The fire alarm is activated but is still not enough to put out the flames. Right after, the protagonist notices those strange eggs in his hand. But before he loses consciousness, he hears the sound of fire sirens approaching. The group of teenagers tries to move through the city silently to avoid attracting the infected. Baek Mai reaches a bus and asks his friends to get inside quickly. Hong Mi asks the boy what the speed of that vehicle was. The young man in turn replies that he believed the maximum speed was 120 kilometers per hour. Right after, Hannah enters the vehicle, exhausted. Hong Mi is worried about her friend and asks if she is okay. The girl replies that she was afraid that the cable car situation would happen again and asks everyone to stay there. Baek Mai responds that if she wanted, she could stay because he was already tired of walking with slow people, and that just hearing her complain made him feel an enormous urge to hit her. Hong Mi asks the boy to talk properly with his friend. While their colleagues argue, So Yeon continues agonizing from her injuries. Min suggests that the girl sit down for a while because it was clear that she wasn't well. So Yeon questions what the boy was doing, and he in turn decides to tell the girl what he had found under each bus seat, which was an emergency hammer. Min explains that he was looking for something useful to prepare in case the cable car incident happened again. Then the boy decides to give one of the hammers to the girl so she can protect herself from those monsters. After that, Baek Mai says they should take advantage of the moment to keep moving. The group then continues advancing, passing behind the buses. Meanwhile, in a convenience store, an unknown person is watching all the teenagers' actions. Baek Mai decides to open the last bus in the parking lot to look for supplies, but he is warned by a person not to do that because there were monsters inside. The boy gets scared and runs back to his group. The woman from the convenience store opens the establishment's door and asks the group to get inside quickly because the area was infested with infected. The students rush into the store completely exhausted, and by coincidence, they end up meeting some of their classmates who had been separated during the cable car chaos. Yang-woo finds himself in a completely dark place and suddenly encounters an infected. As a way to defend himself, the boy uses a burning branch. However, he is stopped by Kim Joo in his infected form. Frightened, the protagonist wakes up from that terrible nightmare, wondering where he was. A man enters the room, saying they were going to have a busy workday. Then he notices that the student had already awakened from his coma and asks if his hand had improved. And he tells the boy that he should first read a form, and then a public interest agent would show him around the building. Yang-woo then starts signing the paperwork, and the staff member explains that he just needed to complete it with his contact number. Then the man says the student was lucky because it was very difficult to get a rescue in the situation he was in. The protagonist asks what that group was doing there, and then the staff member decides to show the young man the place and explains that the area was used as a sports facility, but now it was being used as an emergency shelter near all the rescue people were. Yang-woo asks if there was any way to send a rescue team to Seoul, and the man in turn responds that Seoul was completely closed off at the moment to prevent the infection from spreading. After that, the protagonist realizes that he needs to fill out a form, and then an agent will show him the building. Then the protagonist realizes that he survived despite having an infected hand and wonders how that was possible. Right after, someone appears calling the boy by his name and asking what happened to the rest of the class. The protagonist is surprised because it was Kang Ji and his friends, who say they are very happy to see him. One of them says he has a question for the protagonist. However, he hesitates and decides not to ask because it was too difficult to explain. Right after, he asks if Yang-woo had already contacted his parents. The boy then manages to call his mother and tells her that he is safe in the shelter. The protagonist's mother becomes extremely emotional upon hearing her son's voice after so long without news. Yang-woo tells his mother that he is safe in the shelter, but even so, she cannot stop crying. After that, the boy goes to the doctor to ask about his burns. The doctor reassures the young man, saying that those burns were easy to treat and that he could relax because they would heal over time. After that, the doctor tells the boy that the area was completely isolated and safe. As he walks, Yang-woo feels angry that So Yeon abandoned him like that, even knowing that he was trapped. Meanwhile, in that convenience store, the students plan a way to reach the safe area. A family is trapped in an apartment because of the start of the infection, and the child screams in fear upon seeing what was happening outside. The group then hears a broadcast informing them that the government had mobilized all efforts to rescue the survivors. Then the news program airs a government statement about the worsening situation and the implementation of emergency measures. The group of students listens carefully, thinking about how they could reach the safe zone. Then the report states that all possible efforts were being made to ensure the safety of the citizens, explaining that the region was at level 4 of cellular diffusion, where the damage was severe. After that, the broadcast ends, asking for the cooperation of all people and stating that the citizens in danger zones would be rescued as soon as possible. While watching the report, the owner of the convenience store hands some sodas to the teenagers and asks what happened to the other students who were on the school trip. The woman seems very concerned about the world. Min says that he installed the disaster alert app and mentions that they were in a region classified as level 2 out of 4 in danger zones. A girl wonders what was happening in level 3 and 4 areas. So Yeon, however, isn't even paying attention to her classmates' conversation. Right after, Min suggests that they move quickly to Seoul Station, and the young woman asks why they should leave since the broadcasts said to wait for the rescue. The boy comments that they had no way of knowing when the rescues would arrive. After that, a girl comments to her friends that she couldn't contact her parents, so she wasn't sure if they were okay. Her friends then try to reassure her by saying that the signal was probably not working properly there. So Yeon stares at her phone, trying to gather the courage to call Young-woo. However, the protagonist was no longer receiving her calls. Then she feels guilty for abandoning the boy in that building, as moments before he had saved her life. And she hopes that the young man is safe so that her heart can feel a little more at ease. After that, Hongmai decides to start a live stream to talk with her followers, as the number of viewers had increased since the infection began. The girl explains to the people in the broadcast that the store owner had saved her and her colleagues. Meanwhile, a man who is also in the store starts feeling uncomfortable because of the girl's live stream. Hongmai invites Bakmai to join her broadcast, but the teenager responds by flipping her off. Then the young woman approaches the store owner, asking to interview her. That man tells the girl to turn off the broadcast because they were not in a situation where they could be laughing and chatting. However, the young woman refuses to end her conversation with her followers. The man stands up angrily and orders her to stop the broadcast for her own good. Bakmai steps in to protect his friend and says that she will stop the live stream, but asks what would happen if she didn't. After that, the store owner appears and scolds the man for not treating people well. The man then gives up and returns to his table, calling the teenagers idiots. Right after, Bakmai tells the girl that she was stupid to start a live stream in that situation because people were too sensitive at that moment. Hongmai starts crying, saying that she saw how everyone was discouraged and was just trying to lighten the atmosphere, and that if something bad happened, there would at least be a record of what she and her colleagues went through. After that, the young woman's friends go to comfort her, telling her not to cry. Bakmai returns to the window to keep watching the situation outside, but gets startled by a shadow he sees outside. However, it was just a harmless, hungry cat. The store owner opens the door to feed the feline. A man inside comments that the lady shouldn't be bringing stray animals into that place, but the woman responds that she let the cat in because the store was hers. Right after, the students take the opportunity to pet the cat. The store owner keeps looking outside, and a girl asks what happened. The woman replies that she couldn't see the boy who always walked with that cat. Meanwhile, the other cat encounters an infected pigeon. After that, the teenagers inform the woman that they are leaving to head to Seoul Station. Min suggests that the woman come with them and comments that according to the map, it would reach the location in 20 minutes. However, the store owner says she would only slow them down because the main road would be crowded with monsters. The teenagers realize that they wouldn't be able to reach their destination on foot. A man joins the conversation, mentioning that he's a bus driver and that his vehicle is parked 50 meters away, and that Namsan Tower was his last route, but the passengers never returned. The only problems were that there were those cells all along the way and also some monsters roaming the area. Then the ladies ask if she sells alcoholic beverages. The man then grabs the drinks and explains that he will use them to make Molotov cocktails, saying that he knows a bit about it because he was on the front line. And he says it's worth trying because the infected's weakness is fire. A young man comments that it's a good idea since Molotov cocktails can be thrown from a safe distance. That man then starts making the Molotov cocktails, and Hongmi appears, asking if she can help with something. The man in turn replies that this isn't child's play and questions why she's offering like that. The girl then apologizes for the earlier situation and says she misunderstood things. The man comments that kids can sometimes be like that and also apologizes for being harsh with her. Then Hongmei asks if the man had taken the cable car and mentions that maybe they had seen each other before, and that perhaps the man and his fiancée saw her and her classmates recording videos during a school trip. The man remains silent after the young woman's words. Hongmi apologizes again for saying something inappropriate, and the man in turn explains that the woman wasn't his fiancée but rather his betrothed. After that, the girl starts crying because she had also lost many friends on that trip. Baekmi appears, asking if his classmate was arguing again. The girl then replies that he didn't need to worry because she had made friends with the man and suggests that her friend do the same. However, the boy doesn't care much and refuses to befriend the man. Hongmei comments that the young man was a good person but wasn't very polite. The man asks the girl if they were friends, and she in turn replies that they were until middle school. Meanwhile, the bus driver takes the opportunity to call his daughter and asks the girl to listen to her mother because he will be back soon. The lady comments that it's very good to know that the father will reunite with his daughter. The man then says that he loves his little girl and will do whatever it takes to see her again. Then Hongmei and her new friend return with the Molotov cocktails, and the man says that handling those things is dangerous, so he will try to throw most of them instead of the teenagers. But Baekmai says that he will throw them because he is the kind of person who doesn't trust others. Even so, the man warns them about the danger of the oil dripping onto their hands. The teenager says he doesn't care about his hands in that situation because there were worse things outside, and he comments that none of them were kids, so each one could throw them as well. The man decides that he will give a Molotov cocktail to each of them, but in return, he will do the store lady's part. However, the woman replies that she will stay in her restaurant because she thinks leaving would be dangerous. Hong Mei tries to convince the woman to go with them, but she insists on staying. The man tells the lady that staying there will be very dangerous, but the woman replies that she will be fine because she has been in that restaurant for 30 years. Then the group says that as soon as they reach a safe location, it will send a rescue team. Right after, the man observes the street to check if it is safe, but there is an infected outside. The group then decides to throw their first Molotov cocktail at the creature, which immediately takes damage. Seeing that the plan actually works, a man asks the teenagers to check their supplies. Baek Mai turns to So Yan and says he is sick of dealing with useless people, and that if she becomes a burden, he will leave her behind. The girl wonders if he is talking like that because of Yang Wu or because of her leg injuries. The bus driver comments that the young woman should take care of her beautiful legs. After that, the group decides to put their plan into action, and the lady remains at the door, telling the students to be careful. As they run, the man asks the teenagers to stay close to him and not approach the buildings, and he explains that the bombs should be thrown onto the ground to ensure they break. Right after, the group encounters an infected in the middle of the path. However, the young man manages to throw a Molotov cocktail at the creature. The store owner watches the situation from a distance and ends up seeing the lost cat outside, and the woman then opens the store's door to take the animal in. However, the feline starts vomiting up an infected pigeon it had eaten earlier. Meanwhile, the group continues using the Molotov cocktails to reach the bus. Baek Mai warns that he has already used 4 bombs, and Min tells the others to be careful when using the cocktails. Then the driver informs them that his bus is the blue one up ahead. However, the man gets startled by one of the monsters and bumps into So Yan. Luckily, Baek Mai manages to use one of the Molotov cocktails on the creature before it can do anything. However, all the Molotovs end up falling to the ground, leaving the boy extremely irritated. The man asks the young man to calm down because all the monsters in the area had already been burned. Seeing the way the teenager is talking, the driver gets furious. The two start arguing, and the man says that he is not one of the boy's friends for him to speak however he wants. The girls say that the whole mess is happening because the driver stopped suddenly. The man then explains that he only fell because someone grabbed him from behind. So Yim, in turn, admits that the driver fell because of her and then apologizes to the rest of the group. After that, the man turns his back on the situation but still tells Baek Mai be careful. Hong Mi approaches the boy asking if he is okay, but he doesn't care and walks away. Then the man tells So Yan that she doesn't need to worry because they can make more Molotovs later. Right after, the group hears the store owner screaming behind them, telling them to run. The teenagers start running, wondering what's happening, and then they realize that an infected cat is trying to attack the lady. The animal manages to grab the woman and knock her to the ground, starting to infect her. Right after, the driver gets into the bus and tells everyone to get in quickly. Meanwhile, Baek Mai tries to grab what's left of the Molotov cocktails, while the man rushes him. When the rest of the group reaches the bus, they realize that the driver has locked the door. The boy asks what the man is doing since there are still people outside, and the driver in turn responds that he is not going to take any more risks because of those teenagers. After that, the man starts the bus and Hong Mei tries to convince him not to leave without their friends. Irritated, the driver slaps the girl across the face and tells her to shut up because he has a daughter waiting for him. Seeing that, Baek Mai gets furious and says he is going to kill that man. Right after, the part of the group that was left behind ends up encountering several infected cats. To defend themselves, the man asks for the last Molotov and tells the kids to stay behind him. Since they only have one left, the man says that when he gives the signal, the kids should run as fast as they can. After that, the cats charge toward the group, but the man manages to throw the Molotov in time. At the shelter, Yang Wu takes advantage of the peace to take a nap. However, he wakes up in a panic after having a nightmare about one of those creatures. Observing his hand, he wonders why it is hurting. Right after, Kang Ji arrives to ask if he is okay, but Yang Wu reacts aggressively. After taking a deep breath, the protagonist apologizes and asks what the boys want. Kang Ji then hands the young man a piece of bread and explains that they are giving it to people. After that, chaos breaks out because some people are angry that the administration wants to allow homeless people into the shelter. Some of the homeless people were already in the shelter making inappropriate demands such as cigarettes and alcohol. Kanji jokes that the infection will start spreading even faster in there. Then his friend asks what he is watching on his phone. The young man shows that he is just watching some videos on YouTube because he is bored. After that, Kanji asks if the protagonist knows that some viruses have cells inside them and others do not. And he explains that a virus without cells can completely merge with its hosts. Upon learning this information, the population named the phenomenon fusion. Right after, a guard appears, saying that he is looking for Yang Wu. He then takes the young man to his belongings and tells him that he only needs to sign a document and leave. After picking up his phone, the protagonist realizes that the device is dead, so the man says he will look for a charger. While the teenager waits for the guard to return, a man in the same hallway starts feeling unwell. Right after, the protagonist's hand begins to hurt again. The boy starts walking and remembers what Kanji had told him. He begins connecting the dots, realizing that the virus that fell in the cable car had cells. However, the monsters from the tower did not, and neither did the virus in his hand. After that, Seol appears, asking what the young man is doing there and mentioning that he often comes to that place. She then asks if it is because of his injured hand. Yang explains that he is only there to collect his belongings. The girl asks how the young man managed to burn his hand while being alone in the fire. The protagonist in turn questions why she is asking that and explains that maybe a short circuit could have happened. However, the girl does not believe that explanation and suggests that maybe someone set the fire on purpose. Yang asks what she's trying to say with those questions. Seol responds that she just wants to know who she can trust. Right after, the protagonist starts feeling intense pain in his hand, and the young woman asks if he's okay. The boy thinks about how the pain feels as if his hand is being pierced by thousands of needles. After that, the man in the hallway vomits thousands of those cells. Moments later, a young man announces shocking news about how the isolation of Seoul began. First, he encourages the people of Seoul who are suffering and asks those watching his video to turn off their faucets, as it is a matter of life and death. After that, someone comments on his live stream accusing him of stirring up controversy. In response, he blocks the person and insults others who had commented. He asks if they cannot see how serious what he is saying in this live stream is. Meanwhile, another young man, watching with his friend, starts laughing and says that this idiot is back online again. During his live stream, the young man says that people are always being deceived because they believe the media. He urges people not to trust the media, but instead to believe in Geek TV. Hearing this, the young man laughs and wonders what kind of nonsense he is talking about. Meanwhile, at the shelter, someone appears to be infected with the virus. This gives the protagonist a bad feeling that the pain in his hand is somehow connected to the infected person. At that moment, a young man opens a door and comes face to face with the infected person. The infected person, affected by the virus, says it feels like his stomach is burning and, in frustration, asks if the young man cannot hear him. He then pleads for help. Seeing this, the girl starts running away, but the protagonist tells her to wait and rushes to help his friend from the zombie. However, the girl asks what he is doing and tells him to stop. Then the protagonist tells her to quickly find someone who can help because they need to save their friend immediately. He then tells his friend to hold on because he is coming to help. Watching this, the girl calls him crazy and asks if he has lost his mind. As he runs to help, the protagonist notices a fire extinguisher on the floor. He grabs it and realizes that he may be acting too impulsively, but he knows he cannot just run away and pretend he saw nothing. At that moment, the infected person groans in pain again. Getting closer to the infected, the protagonist asks him to stay calm and explains that the guy near him is not a doctor. He also says he will bring a medical team to help him. Hearing this, the infected person starts losing his patience and, calling the protagonist a little shit, says that he has no idea how he is feeling. He asks how he dares to tell him to stay calm. He then asks if the protagonist were in his place, he would be able to remain calm. Furious, he challenges the protagonist to try it himself and then lunges at him. In response, the protagonist uses the fire extinguisher on the infected. Angry, the zombie then yells at him to just die. As the zombie gets closer and closer, the girl appears and blasts it with a high-pressure fire hose. She then sarcastically asks if the protagonist was seriously using a fire extinguisher and if he thought he was putting out a fire. Throwing the zombie to a safe distance, the young man comes out from where he was trying to hide, but he also appears to have been infected. Realizing this, the young man starts to panic, wondering what those blisters on his hands were. Seeing this, he becomes even more desperate and asks if someone could call for help. Then soldiers appear in the hallway, ordering them to raise their hands. A little scared, the girl tells them that they are not infected. Then the soldiers end up seeing the zombie behind them, and one of them informs that the zombie might be a level C. Next, the other infected young man appears, and with tears in his eyes, begs for help. However, the soldiers set them on fire without any mercy. Seeing this scene, the protagonist asks what they were doing, but one of the soldiers points a gun at him and orders the two to follow them. Moments later, they find themselves inside a tent at the third checkpoint. Scared, the girl says she can't believe what they saw was real, and even if they were infected, they didn't deserve that fate. Thoughtful, the protagonist apologizes, as it was because of him that they were involved in that situation. In turn, the girl asks if he really understood that it was his fault, then says she doesn't understand the protagonist. At that moment, she also asks why he went near the zombie out of nowhere and if he had gone crazy. Then the protagonist responds that he was afraid of turning into a zombie because Hyun was going to lend him a charger, and that's why he went into that room. Hearing this, the girl just says that it's nonsense. Then the protagonist thanks her because, honestly, he didn't expect her to come back to save him. However, she did come back and didn't abandon him, so he thanks her again. At that moment, Seol says he was giving her chills, and then doctors enter the tent. These doctors apologize for keeping them waiting and also thank them for cooperating. With that, Seol asks if they could leave already. However, the doctor replies that they can't, as they will have to stay in quarantine first, and then asks if that would be okay. They accept staying in quarantine. With that, the doctor says it looks like there won't be any problems and informs them that they will be able to go into quarantine with their belongings. At that moment, Lee Hyun-woo gets close to the girl, making her react with disgust and tell him to stay away. But then he says it was just a thank you. Observing this, the doctor asks if he could check the protagonist's hand and politely requests him to remove the bandage. With this request, the protagonist is a little shocked. Removing the young man's bandages, the doctor asks if his burns were being treated, to which the protagonist replies that they were. After examining his hand, the doctor apologizes for the inconvenience and says it is just a health protocol. Yang Wu completely understands and says it's fine. However, he starts to wonder if he was really okay. After all, there was definitely a virus in his hand, but the doctor said he was fine. So why was he so worried? Meanwhile, a crowd tries to leave the quarantine zone, and a man in the crowd tries to get everyone to calm down. But another man tells him to get out of the way, saying they still want to live. Then they manage to leave the building, but upon reaching the outside, they end up being stopped by the soldiers. At that moment, the soldier says that none of them can leave and asks for their cooperation. But apparently, the crowd still wants to leave the place. Amid this, the young man asks if Kangji wants to die and tells him to run away quickly. At that moment, Kangji grabs the young man's arm and then tells him to take a look around, stating that there is no monster there. With that, he asks if the young man wants to put himself in danger like they did in Namsen, because if they leave and get lost, they will end up just like those people. Shortly after, the crowd calms down and everyone is taken back into the building. Then the soldiers thank the people for their cooperation and inform them that they will be closing the building's doors. However, a young man loses his temper and asks if there isn't an infected person inside, while another woman asks to leave. Then the soldier responds that if they leave at this moment, they will all end up throwing themselves to Vasco, because the danger level of Namcheng and the area around the Seoul Metro has risen to level 3. This means that the danger level is the same as the area around the Han River, which is the most dangerous area. And the infected person that was scaring everyone inside the building is already Americanas. At the moment, they are sterilizing the area, so they shouldn't worry. As they are taking preventive measures, they beg for everyone's cooperation to reduce the risks. Having said that, the soldier asks them to step away from the door and cooperate with him. In the middle of the crowd, a woman accidentally bumps into a young man, which makes her apologize. The young man then says it's no problem and that she should pay more attention. But when the woman looks at the young man, she starts screaming. Disgusted, she asks why there was a beggar near her. She then demands that someone do something and tells the young man not to come near her. As the woman approaches another person, she tells her not to get any closer because she had touched the young man. Hearing those accusations, the man gets irritated and takes off his shirt, asking if he looked like someone infected. And he orders the woman to take off hers as well to prove that she wasn't carrying the virus. The guards on site then decide to break up the argument, and Kangji laughs at the entire situation. Shortly after, Yang Wu and Si-ol arrive at the place where the other people were. The protagonist takes advantage of the moment of calm and tells everyone that he is going to the bathroom. After separating from the others, the boy decides to look at his hand and realizes that it no longer had the virus, stating that Yang Wu questions whether his hand was still infected. Then the boy goes into shock at the thought that the virus had survived the burn. But he calms down when he realizes that no other symptoms have appeared so far, and that even the people he had come into contact with had not shown any signs of infection yet. After that, the boy decides that, first and foremost, he needs to figure out his current condition, and that for now, the best thing to do is to avoid physical contact with everyone. Shortly after, Si-ol appears, questioning where the boy was and why he lied about his hand. Yang Wu tries to deflect the topic, but the girl comments that the young man had said his hand had been burned. The protagonist then lies, saying that his hand has already healed. However, Si-ol doesn't believe what he's saying and points out that he was wearing a very thick bandage, so there should at least be a scar. The young people arrive at the place where the other survivors are, and Yang Wu doesn't feel any throbbing pain, which meant there were no infected people there. Shortly after, the girl asks what the protagonist is hiding and says that if he is trying to fool her, she will kill him. After that, the guards bring in a new group of survivors, and Yang Wu feels a slight throbbing in his hand, making him realize that someone in that group was infected. Then the shelter officials decide to make a new announcement, as they will explain the details of the new quarantine protocols that have been released. And they ask the people in the shelter to maintain their distance from everyone. Kangji and his friend question how they are supposed to do that since the place is already crowded. After that, the young people start receiving messages from their class group chat. One of their friends says she is on top of Mount Namsen with some foreign tourists. The young man is impressed by the girl's idea of going higher instead of staying in the lower areas. Yang Wu observes the group of new survivors who arrive and wonders how one of them is triggering pain in his hand. Shortly after, Kangji decides to send a message in the group chat asking for the location of their other classmates. Meanwhile, the people in the shelter say that the quarantine is useless and that they cannot remain silent because someone has been infected. And they say that if the officials don't move them to another shelter, they will sue them. The official making the announcement says that specialists in the quarantine area are beginning their investigations, and that they believe the event happened because an infected rat entered the area. Yang Wu tells Si-ol that they didn't see any rodents in that corridor, and the girl replies that those people wouldn't tell the public that they allowed an infected civilian enter. But the protagonist explains that some people had no contact with the virus and still suddenly turned into monsters. and he comments that maybe there was an incubation period. All says that if the boy gives that information to the shelter officials, they will just dismiss it as some absurd nonsense. The boy gets irritated and says he shouldn't have asked for his colleague's opinion. Shortly after, the girl hands the protagonist a charger so he can charge his phone. Yeon-woo in turn thanks the young woman, who responds with an obscene gesture. As he plugs in his phone to charge, the protagonist thinks about how unusual it was for the girl to lend him the charger. At school, some students tell Se-ol that the teacher had put them in the same group for a project. However, the girl seems unhappy with that teamwork. Yeon-woo and Kim-ju walk past the girls, and the protagonist thinks that all he knows is that his classmates were talking badly about the girl behind her back. But after the young woman lent him her charger, the protagonist thinks that maybe she isn't as bad a person as he thought. Shortly after, some women passed by smoking while talking about a rumor that people had come there because they were told someone immune to the virus was there, and that this person was good at catching monsters and liked helping people. Then they say that this guy had remained fine even after being touched by the virus. One of the women also comments that the immune person grabbed her hand and said that if he was ever in danger, God would tell him. After that, the woman says that this guy was working as a volunteer in the supply division. Yeon-woo is surprised to hear that there was an immune person. Shortly after, that same driver approaches the young man, asking to borrow the charger. The protagonist, in turn, looks around to see if Se-ol is nearby before lending him the charger. Yeon-woo decides to use his phone to call his mother and let her know that he is still in the shelter, and he suggests that his parents return home if possible. After hanging up, the driver apologizes for overhearing part of the conversation. The protagonist replies that it's okay and explains that he got stuck because of a school trip and that now his parents were worried. And the man in turn says that it would be difficult for the boy's guardians to get there, but comments that parents are like that. And he says that he also has a daughter and that if she were in this situation, he would go to Seoul immediately. Then the man comments that his daughter is young and has an illness that keeps her hospitalized. Yeon-woo then says that he also had an illness when he was little and that every day he waited for his mother to come home from work in a hospital room, and that therefore the man's daughter would also recover for sure. The driver laughs and thanks him for the charger and for his words. Then he asks if the boy came to Seoul with some students who were fleeing from Mamsan. However, before the protagonist can answer, the man manages to get in touch with his daughter. Yeon-woo thinks that maybe he can find out about his pain if he meets this supposed immune person. After that, the boy goes to Se-ol to thank her for the charger. But the young woman says that someone sent a message in the class group chat. Meanwhile, Baek-mi tells the others that he managed to get in touch with their classmates. However, the group was still in danger because there was an infected cat outside. While the group was running from the infected cats, they found a convenience store to take refuge in. However, Baek-mi realizes that the store's door is locked and suggests breaking the glass to get inside. Min in turn says that plan won't work because if they break the glass, the monsters will be able to get in, and he points to a gas station. But before they continue running, Baek-mi catches a glimpse of a shadow inside the store. However, he doesn't give it much importance and runs toward the gas station. After the group manages to get into a safe place, they wonder if that creature was the same cat from before. The man says that while they were running, he saw that one of the animals was still alive, and that shortly after, the cat started merging with the other infected creatures. After that, the teenagers notice that the feline is searching for something. The man then says that the creature is probably looking for them because it must have a very keen sense of smell. And he comments that they are lucky because the place is filled with the smell of gasoline, so they will hide there for a while. Baek-mi takes advantage of the safe location and decides to try calling Hong-mei. However, the girl's number is not available for calls at the moment. Angrily, the young man says that if he ever meets that bus driver, he will kill him. Min laughs at the situation because the boy had said that despite the bus leaving them behind, everything would be fine. Baek-mi, in turn, comments that he isn't angry because of that. But his friend says that he seemed to be in shock after the bus left without them. Shortly after, Baek-mi decides to go look for food. While searching for supplies, he keeps remembering when Hong-mei was taken against her will and ends up hitting one of the drawers hard. The man says that if he wants his help to find Hong-mei, he must promise that if necessary, he will help other people too. The man then says that Hong-mei had mentioned that they had dated while making Molotov cocktails. Then Baek-mi is thrown against the window by the infected cat, and the teenagers run into a back room. Seeing that there were still some civilians inside the gas station, the man calls them into the room. However, Baek-mi says that if those people enter, it will be putting everyone in danger. Seeing that action, the man is surprised, and the young man says that he was right and that they really do have to help those people. Then the civilians enter the room desperately, and before the man closes the door, he realizes that the cat was still alive after being hit by the fan. Baek-mi asks what the boy is looking for, and he in turn responds that he is searching for something the group can use. Opening a drawer, the young man finds a set of car keys and says that now they can get to the shelter safely. Shortly after, the group notices that those cells are seeping through the cracks in the door. However, the man acts quickly and breaks the window using a chair. The group then rushes out, and Min asks them to look for the car. To help, he tells them the vehicle's brand. But all the cars in the parking lot are of the same brand, and if they use this method, they won't find the right vehicle. The man then approaches a car to test if it is the one. Inserting the key, the vehicle starts, and the man urges the teenagers to get in quickly. But he soon realizes that the rest of the group is being chased by the infected cat. Shortly after, the woman who was at the back of the group ends up being caught by the creature. On the ground while being attacked, the woman calls for help from her companion. The man, however, leaves the woman behind and desperately gets into the car, pleading for them to leave quickly. After driving for a while, the group finally arrives at Seoul Station. However, the teenagers receive another disaster notification on their phones, warning that the location is now a level 3 danger zone. Looking up, the group notices that the buildings around them are completely consumed by those cells. At the shelter, Yang-woo is standing in line, waiting to meet the supposed immune person. As he stares at the man, the protagonist's hand starts throbbing. At Seoul Station, an infected person clings to the group's car, causing them to crash into a pile of cells. Shortly after, they find themselves facing several cars blocking the way. The man then decides to take an alternate route by driving against traffic. Then he asks how long it will take to reach the shelter, and Min responds that they just need to keep going straight. As they pass by the cars, they see a bus full of civilians who are also trapped because of the monsters. Min comments that he will feel guilty in the future for seeing those people and pretending not to. The man accompanying the group asks why they stopped the car since they were already close to the shelter. Seeing this, he remembers that his wife had previously asked him to save himself. Then the man gets out of the car and heads to the back, where there's a fuel hose. Meanwhile, the young man inside the vehicle tells the teenagers to move aside because he's going to drive. But Bakme doesn't pay much attention and asks if he has something to light a fire. The man in turn says that he has a lighter. So the boy takes the lighter from the man's hand, but before leaving, he warns him not to dare drive while they are outside. Shortly after, Bakme goes to the back of the car and asks the man how they will find Hong Nae by standing still there. He says they are not a bunch of superheroes meant to save people. The man apologizes and says he doesn't expect the kids to understand his reasons. After that, he approaches the bus window where the civilians are and tells them he will help them by clearing a path with fire. A woman inside the bus screams, warning the man to watch his back. Looking behind him, he realizes that a monster is approaching. The stranger inside the car panics and starts trying to run over the teenagers to take control of the vehicle. Meanwhile, to defend himself from the monster, the man throws fuel on it. However, he remembers that he has nothing to ignite the fire. Then the creature tries to attack him, but the man manages to dodge. Bakme appears, showing that he has a lighter, and tells his colleague to run to him. After the man passes him, the young man throws the lighter on the ground, causing an explosion strong enough to set the monster on fire. After that, Min and So-yeon appear, shouting for Choi Han, as the man had stolen their vehicle. Inside the car, the man tells himself that he had no other choice. The teenagers notice that the vehicle's fuel hose is still loose and on fire. Shortly after, the car in which the man was escaping explodes in front of them. On the ground, the man asks if the kids are okay. After that, some armed men appear, reporting to headquarters that they have found survivors in their operation area, and he tells Choi Han that they will take them to a safe area. At the shelter, people can hear the explosion caused by the group of boys. The lights go out, and a responsible official announces that the emergency generator will be turned on soon. Yang-woo uses his phone's flashlight to walk through the shelter. As he tries to enter a room, the security guard warns him that he is not allowed inside. The boy then continues trying to find in the darkness the supposed person who is immune to the virus. Shortly after, Yang-woo's hand begins to throb because he has finally encountered that immune person. Already aware that the protagonist's hand was reacting, the man says that he could sense his presence approaching, and he comments that the boy is less sensitive than he is. Yang-woo says that people have been saying that the man is immune and asks if he also came into contact with the virus without a cell. However, the man starts laughing for no apparent reason and says that the protagonist is a funny person. After that, the man states that there is no such thing as a virus without a cell because they all have one. However, some cells are too small to be seen, and he says that even if it can't be seen with the naked eye, it would still continue growing inside the host's body. However, there is an incubation period, but has not yet been announced to the public. Shortly after, the man states that he and the protagonist are already immune, and that even though the virus is already inside their bodies, the cell cannot transform them. He then explains that the pains Yang-woo feels in his hand are harmless because the cells in it are in an inactive condition. After that, a person appears asking if Lee Tae has finished smoking because he is needed. Before leaving, the man advises the protagonist that if he encounters a monster, he shouldn't run away immediately because that way he will learn a lot. Returning to where the others are, Yang-woo finds Kang-ji and his friend watching videos on a phone. The boy approaches and asks what they are watching, and they, in turn, show him a video they recorded of a fire at Seoul Station, where the creature's screams of pain can be heard. Kang-ji comments that maybe they should burn those monsters if they reach the shelter. Shortly after, Seol appears, asking if the protagonist has read the messages in the class chat group. Opening his phone, the boy sees how his classmates are treating Bakme. Kang-jae tells Yang-woo not to worry about it because someone who betrays their own friends deserves to be humiliated. After that, people see a new group of survivors arriving from the burning area, and Bakme's group also arrives at the shelter. Facing So-yeon, the protagonist feels intense anger because if they hadn't abandoned him, Kim Ju might still be alive. Meanwhile, Choi Han realizes that the bus driver who had abandoned him along with the teenagers is also at the shelter. Baek Mi approaches Kang Ji to confront him about what he was writing in the class chat, and he demands that he and his friend apologize for the way they spoke about their classmates. Kang Ji notices that the boy seems angry and asks if he wants to punch him in the face. However, Baek Mi holds back and says that if he were his old self, the young man would already be on the ground. The boy in turn mocks the fact that Baek Mi was always called to the teacher's office for fighting back in elementary school. Hearing that, Baek Mi becomes furious and grabs the young man by the shirt. However, he is interrupted by the protagonist, who is furious because he was abandoned along with Kim Ju in the cable car building. Meanwhile, the bus driver rushes upstairs, desperate, wondering how those kids managed to get there. But when he opens the door, he finds himself face to face with Choi Han, who quickly grabs him by the shirt, demanding to know where the girls he took away are. The man then breaks free and shouts that they all ran away from the bus. Yang Woo continues questioning whether Baek Mi really left him and Kim Ju behind. So Yeon appears, apologizing to the boy for abandoning him and explaining that at that moment, she was too scared to help. However, the protagonist tells her to stop talking like that because it's disgusting. Then the young man says that if Baek Mi had left Kim Ju in that tower, he might still be alive. And he says that he can understand why they abandoned him, but he doesn't comprehend why they left his friend behind. However, the argument is interrupted when one of the people in the shelter asks the newly arrived survivors to list their names. But before leaving, Baek Mi answers the protagonist's question and says that it was Kim Ju who came up with the idea to abandon him in the cable car tower. Yang Woo gets angry and lunges at his classmate, but is stopped by the shelter guards. After that, the boys go to the waiting line to fill out their information. And so Yeon begins to cry as she remembers the situation at the cable car. The teenagers had broken the window to escape the tower, but Kim Ju didn't jump, afraid of what was outside. Baek Mi gets irritated, pushes the boy aside to make room, and asks how someone so pathetic could even have any friends. And he says that if his classmate wants to run away with the others, that's his decision. Back at the shelter, Baek Mi says that his friends shouldn't dwell on it, as it's all in the past now. Shortly after, the boy approaches one of the guards, wanting to search for Hongmi's name. But the man can't find the girl's name on the list, so he asks about Hannah and Minju instead. After that, Choi Han arrives, accompanied by the bus driver. So Yim questions how the man could abandon his friends, and he in turn replies that the teenagers were begging to come back. Choi Han says that he shouldn't have left those kids behind in such a situation. The bus driver then explains that he couldn't take the risk because he also had a daughter, and that when he didn't obey the girls, they threatened him with hammers. Hearing this, Baek Mi remains silent. The man, however, says he doesn't need to worry because he has already asked the military for help and that in the morning, they will go out to look for them. Even so, Baek Mi asks the driver where his friends got off the bus. At night, Kang Ji and his friend wonder how those people can even sleep. Then they question why Yang Woo looks so depressed, but the boy remains silent. The young man then starts laughing, recalling the moment when Baek Mi and his group saw that the protagonist was still alive. After that, Si-ol appears behind Yang Woo, asking if she can sit near him because she couldn't find another spot. However, before he can respond, the girl says she doesn't need his permission and just sits beside him. But even so, the protagonist remains silent, lost in thought. Seeing the boy's state, Si-ol says that this is why one shouldn't expect much from a friend or anyone else. And that's why she doesn't trust anyone, because people can change easily depending on the situation. Then Yang Woo says that in the cable car tower, there were people begging him to open the door for them, but he decided to lock it to prevent anything from getting inside. And he says he will never forget those hateful eyes staring at him. After hearing that story, the girl asks why he is telling her all this. The protagonist then asks what he should do if that situation happens again. After that, he asks if his classmate trusts him. Si-ol in turn replies that she doesn't because he's hiding a secret from her. Yang Woo asks if she would believe him if he told the truth, because so far he hasn't had a single friend he could trust on this journey. Then the girl stands up and says she doesn't want to stay there because the boy is giving her chills. However, the protagonist asks her not to leave and explains that he is telling her this for her safety because this place is no longer safe. And he reveals that more than half of the people who just arrived at the shelter are infected with the virus. Choi Han, along with some of the boys, finally decides to rest a little. Min sarcastically remarks that at this time they should have been enjoying their school trip. Then the man comments that Baek Mi is as stubborn as ever. The boy wonders why his classmate wants to leave so late at night, but no one is allowed to leave before sunrise. Choi Han asks how the reunion with the classmates they were separated from went. Mid in turn looks discouraged and asks not to talk about it, as they had argued and apparently wouldn't see each other again. The older man advises them to come together again because in times like these, they should be helping each other. So Yin walks down the dark hallways and remembers that Yang Woo told her not to apologize because it was disgusting. Two people walk past the girl and one of the men is telling the story of how he was betrayed in the midst of that chaos. The other guy in turn tells him to take it as a life lesson because the true nature of humans is always revealed in such situations. Upon hearing their conversation, the young girl climbs the stairs crying, thinking that at that moment she had also felt fear. Right after, Baekmi appears, asking what the girl was doing there. While Min is using his phone, he notices that Hanwei had posted a new video on her YouTube channel. Curious, a homeless man appears behind the student, asking if he was watching something interesting. The boy gets startled, and the homeless man tells him to get the brightness of the screen out of his face. Twai-han appears to protect the young man and asks what the problem was. A group of homeless people gathers and warns that the second floor was entirely theirs. Meanwhile, Baekmi continues questioning what So-yeon was doing there in the dark. The girl in turn responds that she was just looking for some fresh air. The boy then tells her she should return to where the others were. After that, So-yeon asks if he was okay, since now they had a reputation as traitors, and she wonders how things ended up that way between them. Next, the girl confesses that it was all her fault because she had seen Yang-woo at the moment she was fleeing. Baekmi, on the other hand, responds that their colleague never asked the protagonist to save her from that monster, let alone wait for her. And he comments that the girl was only feeling that way because Kang Ji and the others were blaming her. However, he knows that none of them would have returned or waited for the boy in that situation either. Right after, both hear a scream coming from where the other survivors were. A man becomes desperate because his wife was acting strangely. After someone uses their phone's flashlight to illuminate the situation, they realize that the man's wife was infected with the virus. The survivors, upon seeing that one of those creatures was in the shelter, start running away in fear. A man who was sleeping wakes up due to the commotion, but it was already too late as the infected woman was already on top of him. Baekmi, along with So-yeon, reaches Choi-han and the others to ask what was going on. The elder in turn responds that he was trying to figure out what was happening on the lower floor. After that, some people enter through the door that leads to the floor where the group was. But upon seeing that there were homeless people in that place, the survivors quickly close the door. Outside, the people hold the door shut and question whether those homeless individuals were more dangerous than the infected. Seeing that they wouldn't be able to pass through there, the teenagers decide to look for another way out. So Yeon notices that on the other side of the floor, Yang-woo and his group were also looking for a way to escape. Amid the chaos, Lee Tae-in was watching a live broadcast about the pandemic situation. One of the security personnel warns that the boy needed to leave immediately. The boy asks if the employee was that nervous because of some infected people who were lying behind him. To defend himself, Lee Tae-in states that he was not the one who caused that mess. Since he had no way of spreading that virus, he wonders if they were already in the incubation period. Next, the young man reveals that he was surprised when he discovered he had the power to control the latency of cells. Lee Tae-in stretches out his hand and also activates the incubation period of that employee. While the man writhes in agony on the ground, the young man kneels and says that he was looking for something in that place. But before leaving, he decides to tell the man how to become immune. Seeing that Baekmi's group was still alive amidst that chaos, Kang Ji's group ends up getting irritated. But before they can respond in any way, Min notices that the lower floor was crowded with those monsters. Yang-woo warns his companions that the place was no longer safe. However, his hand begins to throb again, causing immense pain. One of the boys in the group tells the protagonist to stop acting that way because he was scaring the others. However, this time Yang-woo thinks about how the pain felt somewhat different from before. Seeing the situation, Seol begins to believe that the young man really can feel pain when he gets close to someone with the virus. Right after, people on the lower floor start attracting the infected that were there. Kanji's group then begins to flee, questioning how the virus managed to enter that place. Next, Baekmi's group meets up with the others. However, the atmosphere was still not the same for both parties. After that, the crowd of survivors appears, fleeing from the cells. Choi-han steps in front of everyone to protect them from an approaching infected person. The people on the upper floor start recording the situation on the ground floor with their phones, which was already completely overtaken by the virus. Meanwhile, Yang-woo had collapsed on the floor as the pain in his hand was only getting worse. Another cell is approaching from the other side, leaving the survivors surrounded. Right after, the protagonist warns that to survive there, they would need fire as soon as possible. Then Choi-han asks if anyone there had a lighter because they were going to use the carpet on the floor to ignite it. Seeing Yang-woo's condition, the girls ask if he was okay since he was dripping with cold sweat. After that, the boy looks at his hand and realizes he was feeling something strange this time, and he wonders if it was the same sensation that the dead around him were feeling. The survivors managed to use the burning carpet to protect themselves from the cells on that floor. So Yen questions why Min was staring at the first floor. The boy, in turn, replies that he was wondering how long they would have to keep running from those monsters, and that now he at least needed to try to figure out what kind of creatures they were. Kangji observes through the window, questioning why the military had not yet taken action to save them. Meanwhile, some men report that the virus had spread through the area, but with quick action, they had successfully burned part of the infected, and that next, they would start setting fire to the shelter. Meanwhile, inside the building, the flames begin to grow intense. But even so, the cells continue advancing. The survivors, in turn, decide to keep using fire but carefully to avoid setting the shelter on fire with them inside. During their resistance against the virus, people questioned why the military had not yet arrived, as they were supposed to follow orders 24 hours a day. While the others handled the situation, Yang-woo tells Seol that he had met the immune person that everyone was talking about, and that, apparently, he knew a lot about that virus and the incubation period. The girl asks why he was talking about that at that moment. The protagonist explains that they hadn't noticed because when the virus was inactive, the infected showed no symptoms, and that if the virus suddenly activated and started spreading, there would be nothing they could do. He then remembers that even at the moment he encountered an infected person, he did not feel this kind of pain. However, now his hand was hurting again. Kang Jae observes the situation from a distance and comments that Yang-woo's closeness with the girl was strange since they had been together since they arrived. Baek Mei discovers that Hong Mei had posted a new video on her YouTube channel. Min in turn says he had already watched it, but the sound was not very clear, so she probably recorded the video by accident. However, they at least knew she was still alive. The boy then says they should go out to look for their friend, and his colleague replies that they would stay there because they had no way to escape. Right after, Min illuminates an area on the ground floor and the cells gather in that spot. This makes the boy realize that they were attracted to light. Baek Mei questions what they would do if they left, as they couldn't see anything outside since it was already nighttime. Meanwhile, Min thinks about how they could use his discovery about the cell's attraction to light. After that, people watch as the military finally arrives at the shelter and celebrate, believing they were now safe. To signal the soldiers, civilians start shouting from the windows. Right after, Kang Ji gets irritated because Baek Mei's group was staring at them. The boys in turn show that they didn't care much about that conflict. Meanwhile, the protagonist begins writhing in pain on the floor. A young woman gets worried and approaches him, asking if he was okay. However, he had a completely strange appearance. Seeing that, the woman panics and says that the boy was infected, and she says he was acting just like the monsters on the first floor, so everyone should stay away. Yang-woo in turn begins having hallucinations of those creatures. The young woman gets scared and tries to stay as far away as possible, but a monster appears behind her, grabbing her. To try to save her, Choi-han asks everyone to step back as he was going to throw some burning carpets. Meanwhile, the protagonist's companions watch him struggling from a distance, and Kang Ji thinks about how strange he had been acting since earlier. Then the young man asks if the boy was really infected. To defend himself, Yang-woo says that it was not what the others were thinking. Seol in turn questions how he knew when people had the cells. The boy replies that it was none of her business, but the girl keeps insisting. After that, the protagonist gets irritated and asks everyone to shut up, reminding them that he was the one who saved all of them. And he orders his companions to mind their own business instead of suspecting him. Seeing the way her colleague was speaking, Seol realizes that he was trying to say that there was an infected person within their group. Kang Jae then questions why the protagonist was staring at him. The boy responds that the young man already had the virus cell in his body. Upon hearing this, the young man gets angry and grabs his colleague, questioning what he was talking about. Yang-woo explains that he had already been infected with the virus and that the incubation period of the cells would activate soon. Desperate, Kang Ji says that the protagonist was only doing that because everyone was suspecting him. Baek Mei appears to separate the two and says that Yang-woo had no right to say who was infected with the virus. The boy, in turn, gets irritated and says that soon they would see what happens if they kept underestimating him. Right after, the soldiers invade the place to start burning the monsters. Then they move up to the second floor, where the survivors were trying to stay away from the infected. Upon seeing a woman being consumed by the cells, the soldiers decide to set her on fire. The woman's husband gets angry and asks why they were doing that. Then the soldiers announce that they had found people who were supposedly infected. Seeing the way the men were acting, Choi-han tells everyone to run away quickly. The teenagers start running as it was clear that the soldiers thought they were already infected with the virus. Upon reaching the other side of the hallway, the exterminators were already there and ended up capturing the homeless people. To defend himself, Min shines his phone's flashlight in the soldiers' faces. The soldiers get nervous because they can't see anything and start firing their flames aimlessly. Choi-han reaches the boys and says that they need to find a way to escape the shelter. Kang Jae tells his group that they would die if they left the safe place and says that he saw through the window a location where people were gathering. And he says that they would leave Baek Mei's group behind and go to the other safe place together. Right after, the homeless people reach Choi-han and say that they knew the area so they might be able to help. Then everyone starts running away from the soldiers who wanted to burn them. In the morning on the news, it is reported that civil organizations across the country have raised complaints against the government. And they held a press conference saying that the government was already aware of the mutant virus crisis in Seoul, but was ignoring it. Some relevant documents obtained from anonymous sources confirmed that the government systematically hid the information. The government in turn issued a statement saying that such a thing could not happen, as fake news creates confusion. In one of the shelters, a man brings food to his wife, but she refuses to eat. The man tells her that she needed to eat and asks how long she was going to fast. The woman starts crying and says that she couldn't get in touch with Young-woo. And the boy's father, in turn, tries to calm her down, saying that maybe he was sleeping because he was tired. Meanwhile, some people around them are watching the news about a huge fire that occurred the previous night, and that, according to the police, the flames were caused by refugees who neglected the quarantine officials' rules. But even so, supposedly, many victims died in the incident. Upon seeing that news, the protagonist's mother immediately imagines that her son is involved in the chaos. Somewhere in the city, the group of teenagers finds a safe place where they can rest. The homeless man asks if they would have to wait there until the Seoul gate reopened, and Choi Han says yes. Then he comments that those kids had come to that city on a school trip, and that they had nowhere else to stay, so he asks if everything was okay. The homeless man helps them. The man in turn responds that there was no need to tell that whole story, as he was just returning a favor. Then he says that the group could stay there as long as they needed. A group from the army asks for people's cooperation and states that everything they were doing was for their safety. After that, they ask if anyone there had been infected or had any contact with the virus, and the civilians, in turn, remain silent. Then they ask if anyone had seen a person who appeared sick or unwell. Kang-ji steps out from behind everyone and comments that he saw someone with those characteristics, but that person had already flowed. And then he asks if, by reporting it, the soldiers would hunt down the infected person. Yang-woo looks outside the building while thinking about the situation from the previous night, and he starts wondering how he could be sure he wasn't infected. Meanwhile, Kang-ja tells the guard that he had suspected the protagonist since the moment he arrived at the shelter, and he makes up a story that there was a moment when Yang-woo admitted to being infected and then contaminated an innocent woman. Another man asks if the soldier had checked what the boy was saying, and he, in turn, says that Yang-woo's name was already on the list. Right after, the guard comments that they would have less responsibility if they turned public opinion against a super virus spreader. Kang-ji thinks that he was only making that report because the boy had attacked him first. Upon leaving the cabin, the soldier asks if the young man had made direct contact with the infected teenager. The young man in turn responds that he had kept his distance from the beginning because Yang-woo was acting very suspiciously. While being evacuated, Lee Tae-in ends up overhearing the entire conversation between the boy and the soldier. Baek-mai wakes up from her sleep wondering why her body was itching so much. Min responds that it was probably because of the pillows in that place, as they were infested with lice. After that, the young man notices that the building was without power and asks what they should do since his phone battery was running low. Kang-ji's friend gets up from his bed and calls the boys stupid for not bringing a portable charger on the trip. Then the young man is asked where his friend was, and he replies that he didn't know because they got separated during the shelter chaos. The boy then says that he and Kang-ji weren't as close as everyone thought. Choi Han appears in the room saying that he had inspected the entire building and that, apparently, it wasn't in bad condition. The first floor had a waiting room for the homeless where there was a coffee machine, but it wasn't working because there was no electricity. The second floor was the office, and apparently all the employees had already been evacuated to the shelter. And the third floor seemed to be a resting place for the homeless where there was a cafeteria with some ingredients down the stairs. Then he says that the building seemed quite safe. Seol says that, in her opinion, it makes sense as even the old shelter wasn't safe in the end. And she points out that now the homeless would keep coming in and out of that place, so they should lock all the doors or they would end up infected. Baek-mai, in turn, says that the homeless were the least of their worries and that Yang-woo was the biggest threat at the moment, as he had been very suspicious the previous night. Then she asks the girl if the young man was infected. The girl, in turn, responds that they shouldn't ask her that because she had no idea. And then she says that if they were curious, they should ask the protagonist directly about what was happening. But she doesn't believe he will take them seriously since the teenagers abandoned him at the cable car tower. Min asks her not to mock them because they needed to work together. Otherwise, they wouldn't stay safe. However, the girl shows that she doesn't trust anyone in the group. Choi Han tells the kids to stop fighting and start thinking about where they would stay first, and then they decide to go to the cafeteria to look for food. Upon leaving the room, the boys find it strange that Min and Seol had argued as they always defended each other. So Ye moves to the bathroom to wash her face and ends up remembering moments from the old shelter. While climbing the stairs, the young woman wonders how everyone managed to remain so lucid after going through that kind of experience. And she thinks about how everyone seemed to be mocking her, and she couldn't stand feeling that anymore. Yang-woo appears on the stairs looking at the girl with a hateful gaze. The young woman tells her colleague that everyone from the group was gathered in the cafeteria on the lower floor. But the protagonist ends up going down the stairs without paying much attention to the girl. Then Soo-yeon sees the boy heading out the door and approaches him, asking where he was going. And she asks him not to leave because the outside was too dangerous. Yang-woo pushes the young woman away and tells her not to get in his way. And he says that he didn't know if he was safe in that place or not, so they shouldn't get near him. In the cafeteria, the boys try to get the oven to turn on even though there was no electricity. Min asks his colleague if he had a lighter, and he, in turn, responds that he did. Baek-mai looks at the stairs and wonders why the others hadn't come down yet. Right after, the boy receives a call from an unknown number, and when he answers, he finds out it was Hannah on the other end. So Yoon gets up from the floor and says she doesn't know what the protagonist was so worried about but warns that it was dangerous to go outside. and that since he had never been infected by the virus, the best option was to stay there. Yang-woo, however, doesn't pay much attention to those words and decides to leave anyway. But as he opens the door, he finds some homeless people entering the building. Meanwhile, Baekmae asks where Hannah and the others were. The girl says that they were hiding in a building and that they had tried to return to where their friend was. And she tells him that now they were in an alley with several travel agency signs. But the call is cut off because the young woman's phone battery dies. When he tries to call back, the number is unavailable at the moment. After that, Min says that the number the girl used to call wasn't from any of their known contacts and questions how they knew Baekmae's number. And he, in turn, responds that Hongmai was with them and that she knew his number. Yang-woo and So-yeon arrive at the cafeteria and the boys ask where they had been. The protagonist, in turn, says that they needed to leave the building immediately. Right after, some homeless people appear, saying there was no need to run. A huge man appears, questioning if the teenagers knew what kind of place that was. Some beggars come in right behind, forcibly bringing Seol with them. The leader asks the group if there were any more of them there. After that, the homeless man who helped the boys arrives, saying that those people were his guests. Then both groups sit down, and the man asks why the homeless man was there, as they thought he had already gone to the shelter. The leader says that he had almost died at the station and wonders what kind of bad luck would happen next. Won listens to the whole story with a thoughtful look. Meanwhile, the group waits in another room for the men's conversation to end. Min comments that those beggars were very grumpy and questions if they were some kind of gangsters. Choi-han says that the homeless man who helped them would be fine because he was well armed in that area. The leader tells Hwang to leave the place and asks if they were going to resolve things peacefully. Some guys in the meeting say that if the man had some new girls they could share, and the homeless man in turn glares at them in an intimidating way. Choi-han tells the teenagers that Hwang was a former boxer who had even won an Asian championship. The beggar gets up from the table and says that he had a debt with the teenagers, so it was impossible to resolve that issue peacefully. Baekmae tells Choi-han that one of his missing friends had called him, and that despite being a short call, he was sure that they were okay. Then he says that the driver had told them where he dropped them off, so they just needed to search that area. While they discuss a rescue plan, Seol starts getting worried because they were in danger in that place. The boys ask why she was so scared. The girl says that she was worried about that group of homeless people because they seemed dangerous. Baekmae says that they could talk to the beggars to arrange to share the rooms. Seol smiles ironically and says that the problem was solved. Then she tells them that the old shelter was completely overrun by the virus and says that there was a chance of the same thing happening again if they didn't get rid of the beggars. So-yin sits in a corner of the room wondering if the protagonist was really infected with the virus. Seol leaves the room angrily, saying that the group wanted everyone to get contaminated. The boys ask where the young woman was going, but she replies that it was none of their business. As she walks through the hallways, the girl wonders if she should leave and go to another shelter. While going down the stairs, Seol comes across Yang-woo spying on the homeless people's conversation, because when he met that group earlier, he felt that someone was infected. Seol approaches the boy from behind, asking what he was doing there, and he, in turn, gets startled. Then the young woman says that she had been very curious about his hand and that she finally understood after seeing how the virus died because of fire, because the young man's hand throbs whenever an infected person gets close to him. Hearing those words, Yang-woo does not deny his friend's suspicions. The protagonist says that he was just checking some things before leaving the place and mentions that it was actually better for her since she never trusted him. Seol in turn says that she never said she didn't trust him. Right after, she says that she wants to leave that place together with him. Yang-woo then says that they would escape together, but first they needed to observe the situation, because something was bothering him since he could sense the presence of the infected, and that could end up being dangerous for her. After that, the young woman grabs him by the shirt and tells him to stop acting like an idiot and follow her. She says that, among everyone there, only he was suspected of being infected, and she asks if he was now feeling special because he could distinguish the infected. The protagonist comments on the fact that the girls saved him at the shelter. Seol in turn says that she only did it because she knew where the emergency exit was, and she explains that she never took action unless she was sure of what she was doing. Yang-woo responds that if that's how things were, he could leave her behind if he wasn't sure of what he was doing. Then he asks if she now understood what it felt like to be left behind in a dangerous situation and says that he didn't want to cause something like that. After that, the boy walks down the stairs wondering if he had crossed the line, because even earlier he had simply grabbed So-yeon's hand and dragged her to run. And he stops to think that maybe he still wants to get closer to her. Right after, some homeless people encounter the young man and say they were offended because he had run away from them before, and they threaten the protagonist, saying that they were going to have a little talk. Seol appears, telling the beggars to stop acting that way because even the teenagers were avoiding the boy out of suspicion that he had the virus. The homeless people then go up the stairs, afraid of getting infected. Then the girl says that staying in that building wasn't a bad choice as long as they expelled the infected people. But even so, the boy needed to take her away from there. Hwang arrives at the group and asks if Choi-han wants to take a walk with him, and the man, in turn, accepts. The homeless man asks if he was sure, as the outside was very dangerous, and he says that most of the virus was gone due to the fire at Seoul Station. However, if they encountered the sterilization army, there would be no chance of survival. Apparently, the soldiers exterminated all the beggars in that area, using the excuse of preventing new infections. After that, the young man asks why Choi Han was going so far for those teenagers. The man in turn says that there was a woman who wanted to be a teacher, and that even though she never passed any exams, she never forgot her dream. Choi Han then reveals that this woman was his fiancée. She always helped the children, giving them snacks to make them happy. And when he asked why she did that kind of thing, the woman responded that she liked doing good deeds. The man then says that he believed that if he helped those kids, maybe his fiancée could forgive him. Right after, the young man tells the teenagers that Huang said where the street with travel agency signs was, and he explains that they would separate the bottles so that all the bombs wouldn't explode at once. After that, he says that he would rescue the girls only with Bak Mai. The boy, in turn, tells his colleagues not to worry because they would be back in less than an hour. As they head out for the rescue, they encounter Yang Wu in the hallway, and Bak Mai takes the opportunity to apologize for abandoning him that day. And he says that he did not expect to be forgiven by the protagonist. But he mentions that he owed the young man a huge debt for saving Hong Mei at the cable car tower. When she sees the boys leaving, So Yeon says that she also wants to go rescue the girls, because she couldn't just sit still while her friends were in danger outside. Seo questions how the young woman was planning to help them, as they would all die if the monsters found them. Then she says that she had already mentioned that the building was dangerous, and she asks if everyone would really be able to survive 10 days until the Seoul gate was opened. Kwai Han says that the girl was right and that all the boys should stay and keep an eye on the building, because they wouldn't be able to do anything if that place got infected. Before leaving, the man asks Huang to take care of the children for him. Yang Wu thinks about what So Yeon said about not being able to stay still while a friend was in danger, and he wonders what he and Kim Ju were to her when she abandoned them to die at the cable car tower. Seo grabs everyone's attention, saying that there was something they needed to do immediately. After that, a homeless man appears calling for Huan because a fight was breaking out on the lower floor. The girl says that based on her experience, her plan would only drive the virus away but wouldn't kill it completely. While trying to break up the fight, Wang ends up being stabbed. The leader of the homeless people appears, saying that the young man should have resolved the problem through peaceful conversation. Right after, the beggars begin attacking Huang. Seol says that in the end, it was always humans who ruined the plan. So Yeon says that from the way her colleague was talking, it sounded like something was about to happen. The girl in turn says that more people infected with the virus had arrived at the location, and she tells her friends not to ask how she knew that, but she was absolutely certain about it. Right after, the group of homeless people arrives, calling out to the teenagers. On the news, it is reported that the Citizens Alliance held a press conference where they discovered that the government was hiding information about the virus incident in Seoul. The leaked documents contained details about the army's training for virus prevention. The military adopted a measure to contain the virus spread by categorizing people as infected or not infected. Meanwhile, the government has not yet officially commented on the matter. Baek Mi and Choi Han move through the streets and come across some soldiers burning something. Upon seeing that situation, the two decide to return to the alley. The man tells the boy that they needed to be careful because the infected could appear out of nowhere. As he follows the man, the young man begins to recall how he agreed to help search for Hong Mei. After that, Bak Mai calls out to the man, and Choi Han questions how long he was going to keep addressing him that way since their age difference wasn't that big. Then the boy comments that he didn't expect the man to actually help find his friend. Choi Han says that he was the one who was surprised that the teenager decided to go out and save the girl. And he mentions that kids his age don't usually do things like that. Then he asks what the young man felt for Hong Mei. Bak Mei, in turn, replies that the question was totally irrelevant to the situation. After that, the duo arrives at an area completely overrun by the virus cells. The man warns that they would have to go around. However, Bak Mei quickly acts and uses a Molotov cocktail to burn the creatures and pass through without any trouble. Right after, the two manage to reach a small convenience store, and Choi Han says they should grab some bottles of water to take to the girls. Then the boy decides to answer the question the man asked about his feelings for Hong Mei. He explains that when he was in middle school, he was an arrogant delinquent. At that time, he hated school for no particular reason, which made him feel empty every day. And that's when he started getting closer to Hong Mei. One day, Bak Mai ended up meeting the girl and her mother. Upon seeing the young man, the woman said that he was very handsome and hoped that he and her daughter would be good friends. Before that, the young man had never had a proper conversation with the girl. However, after that encounter, the girl always started conversations with him at school, making him feel very happy as he no longer felt empty inside. On graduation day, everyone was accompanied by someone, except for the boy. Hong Mei's mother approached him to give him a gift and said she was sure his parents would have loved to be there at such an important moment. Then the woman invited the young man to take a picture with her family. Bak Mai says that he had hoped that happiness would never end. Seeing the way the young man looked, Choi Han tells him that the girl would be fine and that he didn't need to worry. Then they leave the store and are approached by the military. In the building where the teenagers were, the homeless people discover that the two who had left were going to bring back food. Their leader says that if the boys were lying, he would kill all of them. Seol in turn says that if they didn't bother her group, they would receive half of the supplies. Right after, the boys are locked in a room, and the man says that if there was no food on his table by the end of the night, he would beat them just like he did to Huang. Looking back, the students see the homeless man bleeding on the floor. Min is surprised because Choi Han had mentioned that he was a boxer in the past. The boy questions how Seol could promise supplies to those thugs. The girl then asks if they had a better idea. Yang Woo says that the best option was to wait for the infected to start showing symptoms, and that those who were secretly contaminated would begin showing symptoms before Bak Mi and Choi Han returned. While some of the homeless people rest in the room, one of them starts feeling unwell. Seol says that the worst thing that could happen was the virus being activated, as they would take over the building. So they needed to find a way to leave before that happened. After that, she notices that So Yeon is staring at her and asks if she wanted to say something. The young woman in turn responds that she wasn't doing it on purpose. The boy isolates himself from the others and thinks that he shouldn't have entered that shelter with them. Then he receives a message on his phone from Kang Jae. Shortly after, the boy begins leaving that place. Right after, the scene cuts to Min saying that the virus was in its incubation period, spreading at that moment. Because of that, he wasn't sure what could happen to them after all. They were in the basement cafeteria at that moment. There was a possibility of getting trapped in that place, but they could still use fire. There was a gas oven in the back, and luckily, a lighter still had gas. If that virus really started spreading, they needed to think of a plan to make fire. Then the scene cuts to another boy in silence, stating that there was no problem in making fire. However, they had to be careful because that virus burned easily. If they set fire to it, it would create a sea of flames extremely fast. Moreover, they should remember that they were inside a basement. Bak Mi, amid that situation, asks what the boy was doing. She also wanted to know why he was still there, because besides those beggars, it was an infected person. Min tells the boy not to be ridiculous, as they shouldn't suspect each other. The young man asks why not, stating that he was just saying what he thought. Unlike him, he owed nothing. The other boy then says that he was going to leave that place. He states that he wouldn't even see him leaving. He asks if the other girl was going with him too, saying that she should have left that place when she had warned them. He says that he was foolish for trying to save all of them after they had been left behind, so they should all just shut up once and for all. The young man then gets very irritated and asks if he thought they were friends just because they had talked a few times. He wanted to know what he had just said. The protagonist responds that he told him to shut up. Amid that situation, Min asked them to stop fighting because they shouldn't be doing that. Moreover, he wanted to know why the protagonist was so angry with them. He said it was already time to forgive them. Even so, at that moment, there was no other choice but to trust and help each other. Hong, irritated, asks how long they would continue with that fight as they needed to prepare. At that moment, Min asks her to wait. She says that she had been thinking about that ever since they left the cable car. She mentions that the virus was the worst one that had ever appeared. She says it was a virus that kept growing non-stop until a host died. Cell division happens incessantly. After thinking about this, she concludes that it was a cancerous cell. She mentions that she tried to think about the characteristics of the cells they already knew and realized they were always similar. Hong asks what it had to do with anything, questioning if she intended to burn them with radiation. Right after, the boy asks if she has ever heard of high-frequency heat treatment. He states that cancer cells are heated to about 40 degrees, which is an effective treatment to kill them. Hong asks if they only need to focus on the temperature. Min replies that that was exactly it. Right after, the girl starts thinking, wondering if they could use water. She states that water wouldn't cause a fire and would make it easier to exterminate the virus. She asks if they were really going to try using water at different temperatures. Right after, another girl thinks that the school felt like a heartless ring. Even so, in a situation like that, it shined brightly. That made the girl want to rely on it before realizing it. Because of that, she found it completely useless. At that moment, the group hears a noise. Meanwhile, two men seem to be sleeping. Right after, they end up waking up. Hong says that it was a scream. Min, responding, confirms that it was. He questions if it had already started. The protagonist quickly asks them to lock the doors before they came down to that place. Another girl moves toward the door. However, she can't reach the latch. She says she really needs a chair. Right after, Hong grabs one and asks what she was doing since she should just climb onto the chair immediately. At that moment, the other girl does so. She states that she needed to find something they could burn. Then the scene cuts to Min, saying that he was taking out all the long kitchen utensils. He states that they would tie them with napkins and pour oil on them to light the fire. Right after, the protagonist looks to the side and sees another man getting up. Our hero, worried, asks if he was okay. He asks if he could stand up because he needed to run. At that moment, the girl notices something. Two infected people were on the other side of the door. They were begging for someone to open that door immediately. Meanwhile, our boy watches all of that. Right after, the scene cuts to the outside of the building. A group of people appears to be carrying flamethrowers. They look around and say that everything was too quiet. Right after, an unknown creature appears above the building. The soldiers notice that creature. Right after, they start shooting fire at it. Another soldier asks if the location was really there. The boy replies that he was sure since he had received a call from friends saying they were hiding in a building with offices. The soldiers decide to continue searching in that area. They say that the survivors are 4 high school girls. The girls had requested rescue in a nearby building. Because of that, they would save those people immediately and return later. Right after, a boy tells his colleague that it seemed like those soldiers weren't going to capture them. Then, another soldier asks them to wait. He mentions that they had found several A-rank monsters. Because of that, they needed to burn them first. The other boy asks if the virus was at level A. The soldier replies that that was exactly it. He mentions that it was categorized based on density size and that level A, in most cases, was larger than a human body. Sometimes they even exceeded 3 meters. Amid that situation, the other boy assumes that the virus he had seen at the health station was one of that ranking. He mentions that he had even seen cats getting infected. They fused together and became larger. The soldier is very surprised by that. He states that it must really be A rank. The soldiers, looking around, realize that the girls were not in that location. Then they begin searching the entire building. Another soldier notices that a door was open. He states that they should investigate that place. Right after, the group of soldiers enters. They notice traces indicating that someone had passed through that place. However, no survivors were found. The other boy, looking ahead, comes across several boxes. At that moment, he remembers Hong. The soldier, looking to the side, says that the tracks were also in that other place. Thus, time passes. Another soldier says that it seemed like someone had passed through that place after burning something. Even though there were no footprints, someone had definitely walked through that alley. Observing all of that, the other boy remains silent. At that moment, he starts running, wanting to go to a certain place. He searches for where his friend might be. Then a flashback plays, showing his friend saying that she had just learned a really cool word in English. She asks if he knew the word called destiny, which meant fate, and that's why she liked that kind of thing. Irritated, the boy says that he wasn't interested in that, so she shouldn't bother him. Hearing that, Hong feels very disappointed. Sometime later, the other boy ends up waking up. Right after, he starts looking at his hand. Then the scene cuts to the present. The boy still seems to be searching for his companion. Right after, he looks to the side. He comes across an unfamiliar bag and, in front of it, an open door. Once again, the boy's flashback appears. He thinks that he doesn't know since when, but he always hated the moment he opened the door to his house and walked in. The silent environment of that house made him feel empty. Then the boy ends up entering his room. A sum of money, along with a letter, was there. Apparently, his mother had left it. Sometime later, the boy is seemingly playing on a computer. He becomes very frustrated as he is about to lose the match. Then he ends up getting up. The scene then cuts to him at his small store buying something. He starts eating that instant ramen while scrolling on his phone. He seems very frustrated. He thinks that his purposeless days in 9th grade seem to last forever. At that time, at the end of one of those meaningless days, he ended up encountering Hong. For that reason, from that moment on, she greatly improved his life. Then the scene cuts to another place with the boy saying that they had run into each other quite a lot in those last days. Hong says that every day at 9 in the evening, she always passed by that street after leaving her course. That was the first time she had seen him there. She asks if the boy was buying his dinner. She mentions that they frequently had discounts there. Besides, wasn't it a pity? Because if she had met him a little earlier, she could have picked one of those meals for him. At that moment, Hong looks to the side. She notices that the store was still open, but it usually closed around 7 because they always sold out. For that reason, it was very unexpected. She asks if the boy had ever eaten that food before. Once again, time passes and the two apparently seem to be eating that food. Hong says that he is a man and couldn't possibly be satisfied with just instant ramen, so he should eat a lot. Then the girl suggests that they drink some ice cream. However, the boy tells her to swallow her food first before speaking. He says that she really eats a lot. Taking advantage of the conversation, the girl asks why the boy eats so little. The boy replies that he had already eaten before. Hong, in turn, apologizes, saying that she had ketchup on her cheek. She asks if she could take a picture by any chance. Then time passes. Hong says that she was already full. She says that the next day the food would be on her. Saying goodbye, she tells him that she'll see him at school. He then becomes very surprised, wondering if Hong really intended to pay for him the next day. The scene then cuts to the school. The boy, meanwhile, seems to be deep in thought. He wonders what the girl could have been looking at to have that expression. Then time passes again, and class finally ends. Everyone quickly starts leaving that place to go eat something. The other boy, meanwhile, is observing everything, thinking that ever since then at school he started paying attention to Hong and Mei. The scene then shifts to another location, the man asking if he had really paid $1,000,001 for that. Then he starts looking at the motorcycle. The motorcycle guy says that his most trusted store gave him a special price, and that's why he simply didn't understand what it meant to invest. Another man says that it was nonsense, calling the motorcycle guy crazy. He asks if he hadn't forgotten about today's thing, since he had already seen several pictures of her, and she was very beautiful. Another boy says that he didn't know about that since he didn't like crowds. Then the scene cuts to another location again, and the boy seems to be with his group. However, he still looks very thoughtful. He says that he would head home first, so they should go without him. While walking down the street, the boy wonders if his friend would really be at that place or if he was just overthinking things. Looking at his phone, he realizes that it was almost 9 p.m. Right after, a boy ends up entering a store. Then he comes across Hong, who greets him. She asks if he was looking for a special offer. Besides that, she wants to know what happened to him, mentioning that he had run all over the place since he was already sweating. The guy responds that he usually runs since he has to walk everywhere, and he takes the opportunity to exercise. Because of that, he was hungry. Hearing that, Hong remains silent and then asks if he liked toast. Time passes and the two seemingly start enjoying themselves. The other boy says that he felt comfortable eating together with someone like her in those moments, and because of that, he ate a lot. Then the scene cuts to another location and Hong asks why the boy acts that way at school. She mentions that he sleeps every day and never talks to his classmates. Besides that, they said that the boy fought to earn a living. The other guy asks who was talking about him behind his back. Hong responds that she doesn't want to say. Time passes again and the scene cuts to the boy in his room. Looking down, he realizes that there were many things destroyed. His mother, in turn, asks what time it was. Then she calls out to her son again. She mentions that he had told his teacher that he wanted to drop out of school. She asks if that was true. The boy responds that that's not what he meant. At that moment, the boy is shocked because his mother seems to be holding some kind of drug in her hand. The boy asks where she found that. She mentions that he had promised to throw everything away. His mother asks why she couldn't do that after all. Everyone made her suffer. Besides that, he was the one who made her that way. Then the scene cuts to the hospital, and Hong's mother appears to be receiving medical attention. Hong thinks that the last time she saw her father, he had said something. He said that she should take good care of her mother. However, ever since she divorced her father, her mother had ended up in the emergency room countless times. That's why she could never forgive her father for abandoning them. Then the scene cuts to Hayden walking somewhere else. Looking ahead, he notices something. He realizes that Hong was there too, and then he notices the boy. Hong asks where he had gone because she had waited for him for a long time. Hayden asks how she knew where his house was. The girl responds that she found out through the teacher, but either way, she wants to know why he hasn't been going to school. She mentions that the teacher said she couldn't get in touch with him. However, Hayden tells her to just leave since he wasn't in the mood to talk. Even so, Hong asks him to wait. Irritated, the boy asks what she wants from him. Hong asks why he was acting that way because he didn't seem like himself. However, Hayden responds that it's ridiculous. He asks what she thought she knew about him. Did she really think they were friends? He mentions that the girl wouldn't even have the courage to look him in the eyes if they weren't classmates. Because of that, she should disappear and never come near him again. Right after, Hong says that he was being very cruel. She says that she went there because she was genuinely worried about him. Without any regret, Hayden responds that he doesn't care about that, and for that reason, she should disappear. As the girl walks away, the guy thinks that he was happy when he was with Hong, but he was afraid of opening up to her. At that time, he had no choice but to run away. Then the scene cuts back to the present. Hayden still seems to be in that place. The other soldier starts using his flamethrower, telling the boy to step back. Right after, the soldier notices an exoskeleton, saying that there was one of them there. Then that soldier starts screaming and the group, desperate, watches what's happening. From the other side of the place, an unknown creature begins to emerge. Apparently, it was another virus. The other soldier, looking at his companion, realizes that he was unconscious on the ground. Quickly, he draws his weapon. He starts firing multiple shots at the monster. Right after, a creature charges toward the soldiers, who meanwhile seem desperate because their weapons weren't working. The other guy says that they should get out of that place immediately, and for that, they needed to call for reinforcements first. At that moment, everyone starts running out of that place. However, it was obvious that the creature wouldn't let them escape so easily. It starts chasing them. The other soldier then uses his flamethrower to try to contain the monster. However, he is shocked as the fuel quickly runs out. Upon seeing the creature descending the stairs, the man says he will lure it as bait and then catch up with them. The group then reaches an open space and a soldier tries to contact the base. Choi-han questions how the squad knew about that infected. The man in turn says he does not understand why the young man is asking about the monster. Then the elder comments that he had seen many creatures before but never like those, and that since they were soldiers, they must know something. After that, Choi-han asks the man to tell the rest of the group everything they know. The soldier removes his helmet and does not answer the young man's question, and he starts communicating with the third squad, saying they needed immediate help. Then the man explains that they did not know what those creatures were or where they came from, and that the soldiers had accidentally gained access to the information faster than regular citizens. After that, he explains that those cells spread more than expected and that when they were being researched, there was a chance they could be biochemical weapons. And that monster was a variant of the mutations possessing different characteristics from the other monster fusions. While normal infected tend to become softer during the mutation process, these form exoskeletons along with an increase in bones. Dealing with this type of creature is quite difficult because the virus cell has already entered the pile of bones created during the mutation, and they cannot be fought using a flamethrower. The man comments that the group's fuel had also run out. Kuai Han then understands that there must be more mutations beyond that exoskeleton. Right after, the soldier says that some were found in combined bodies. Baek Mei questions why they had not told them that information from the beginning, and says that if it had been revealed earlier, he would not have gone to that place and his friends would not be in that situation. After that, a man calls the soldier, informing him that headquarters had said they were coming to help them, and that they should remain where they were. Baek Mei, in turn, asks what they were going to do about searching for his friends. The soldier replies that he should simply give up as it was difficult to conduct searches at that moment, and that his friends were unlikely to be alive in that kind of situation. The boy then gets angry and tells the man to stop talking nonsense. Kuai Han steps in, asking if they could not continue the search if they rearm themselves. Then the young man says that if he did not receive help, he would go out to search alone. The soldier in turn comments that they needed to wait for reinforcements to arrive, and asks if the boy has any idea how many members of his squad had died because of him. After that, a phone rings and the group finds it strange. Kuai Han answers the call from a person who is in the next room, and asks if the men were looking for some girls. Meanwhile, the teenagers use gasoline to set the infected on fire. All orders the others to put out the fire before it spreads through the building. Yang Wu feels something and starts running, saying that there were more monsters on the upper floor. Min questions if his friend is sure, and he in turn replies that he is. Seeing the way the boy is acting, Seol thinks that he really might serve as a navigator. Then the teenagers reach the upper floor. The protagonist hesitates to open the door because the pain he is feeling is different from before. And then the boys enter the room and come across an infected person who is begging to be killed. One of the youths tries to throw one of the torches at the infected, but Yang Wu tells him to wait. The protagonist wonders how that person was infected by the virus without cells but was still able to talk normally. After that, the boy begins to approach and finds it strange that the pain in his hand is the same as when he encountered a fused monster. As he gets closer to the person, Yang Wu asks if they can hear what he is saying, and warns that he had fire, so the creature should not try anything funny. The infected person, in turn, asks if the young man was the first to arrive there. After seeing that situation, one of the boys leaves the room vomiting, questioning why his friend was talking to that thing. Right after, the creature begs the young man to burn it with that fire. The protagonist says he will help him, but in return, he needs him to answer how he manages to stay conscious despite being infected. The creature starts crawling toward Yang Wu, saying that he will not be able to avoid the fusion, and that in the end, he will devour all of his friends and then everyone around him. The protagonist gets angry and throws the torch, telling him to stop spouting that nonsense. Outside, the boy comments that he is now sure that Yang Wu is infected, and that from now on, if anyone is willing to get close to him, they will get punched in the face. Seol asks Min what he thinks about the whole situation. The young man, in turn, says that it is unusual for the girl to ask for his opinion. Then he says that he does not believe a cancer like that can be completely cured. The boys decide to run away because the army is coming after them. Kangji talks to his friend on the phone and thinks about how his colleagues believe he is being protected, but in reality, he is being watched. The young man questions whether the soldiers are suspecting him. After that, Kangji starts feeling very sick. Seeing that, the soldiers decide to report the situation to their superiors. However, Li Tian asks the man to wait because he first wants to take a look at the boy's condition. After analyzing him, the young man says that the boy is fine and that he wants to have a little chat with him. One of the soldiers questions who that guy is, but the other, in turn, decides to obey his request. Li Tian sits down and asks if Kangji is feeling nauseous. The boy finds it strange that the young man is not wearing a mask and asks who he is. Li Tian smiles and says that he is the one who can help him. Meanwhile, some soldiers manage to capture Yang Wu and the others and request a report in case they find the other children. So Yeon tells her friend that the others have escaped and asks what they should do. The protagonist tries to stay calm because nothing will happen as long as the soldiers do not know he's infected. A hostage stands up furiously, questioning why the soldiers are threatening the citizens. The soldier then aims his weapon at the young man and tells him to step back. However, the man keeps approaching, irritated. One of the soldiers then shoots the young man and says they should shoot without hesitation if anyone suspected of being infected gets close. Then he aims his weapon at Yang Wu, asking where his friends are. Frightened by the situation, the protagonist raises his hands and responds that he does not know. On the streets, some soldiers are patrolling, and they realize they are being followed by monsters. At the shelter, Kangji asks how Li Tian can help him. The young man, in turn, asks if the boy does not trust him, and explains that he is trying to help people who are infected with the virus. Kangji gets angry and starts thinking that the man is working with the soldiers and intends to deceive him. Then he asks if he has any proof that he is infected with the virus, and begins to say that he is the nephew of a council member, where everyone knows his name. Li Tian starts laughing and says that the young man is very funny. After that, he gets up and touches the boy's arm. Kangji then starts feeling sick again. The young man, in turn, is surprised by the immediate reaction, even though he had only touched him once, and says that he enjoys the situation of seeing someone on his side die like a dog. Then he explains that it feels as if he is healing himself. Li Tian says that the young man will not be able to escape from Seoul, and then wonders what he should do with the young man. On the streets, the army tries to fight the creatures with their flamethrowers, and they find it strange because all the surrounding areas had already been sterilized. Seeing that situation, Wong tells the teenagers to get up so they can get out of there. One of the men's weapons runs out of fuel, and a monster takes the opportunity to attack him. A soldier is deeply saddened to see his colleague being infected. The men understand that if they continue at that pace, they will die, so they need to retreat. As the teenagers flee, a homeless man tells Yang-woo to pull himself together and start running faster. The protagonist gets tired and asks the others to go ahead because he will be fine. So Yeon asks what the boy is talking about. Right after, the young man begins to think that the virus in his hand has already spread to his brain, and that somehow the cells in his body are calling the monsters. After that, he remembers that something similar happened at the cable car tower. When the monster on the 3rd floor died, the creature on the 2nd floor moved up. And at the moment Kim-ju died along with the monster that infected him, the surrounding cells started clinging to the window. Then he begins to think that the infected can send some kind of signal to make the other monsters gather when they are in danger. So if the boy stayed with the group, more monsters would end up appearing because of him. So Yeon says that they should all stay together and questions what he intends to do alone there. Yang-woo in turn tells them to leave without asking questions. But before that, he says that he forgives the girl for abandoning him at the start of the quarantine, and that she does not need to pretend she is protecting him from now on. Wong says that it is better for the protagonist to keep running away with them. But even so, the boy still thinks it would be better to start running alone. The others then decide to leave as they do not have much time. Yang-woo manages to reach a safe place and regrets not having fully charged his phone. And he thinks that his mother is probably very worried about him. Right after, he questions what he should do now, as the soldiers are chasing him and he is also surrounded by monsters. And that even inside his body there are virus cells growing, making him think that he will soon die. After that, a soldier appears at the door watching the boy. At the shelter, Kang-ji takes a medicine that Lee Tae-in gave him. But the young man says that there are some side effects, which can be strong since it is an anti-cancer drug. Then he already notices that the boy is definitely wondering why he is helping him. So he asks him to take a look outside. All those soldiers are trustworthy and he has never seen anything like that before in his life. However, it is sad because now those men are his enemies. Kang-ji picks up his phone and decides to call Yang-woo's mother. While the protagonist is fleeing, he thinks that separating from the others was the best option for their safety, and that in these situations, abandoning each other is probably something normal to do. The men question if an elderly woman knows where the girls are. The woman in turn says that she only knows the direction they went because she could only hear the sound of their footsteps in the hallway. The soldier then asks which direction they went. The woman says that about 2 or 3 hours ago, everyone in the building had already evacuated and she was left behind. When she started hearing someone's footsteps running down the hallway, the girls were talking while running, saying that Minju was chasing them. The soldier thanks the lady for the information and says they will escort her to a safe place. Upon hearing the woman's story, Bak Mei becomes worried about Hong Mai. Choi Han approaches the boy and tells him not to worry because things will get better once reinforcements arrive. A soldier tries to communicate, asking for help as he is in an emergency situation. The virus has managed to penetrate the defenses and spread. However, right after, the young man's call for help is interrupted because an infected person manages to enter his cabin. Somewhere in the city, a group of soldiers is searching for the teenagers who have not yet been found. Min questions what they should do since So Yeon and Yang-woo have been captured. Seon-yu says that they need to find a way out of that place because those two are not their problem. Se-ul comments that if they had the protagonist, they would have an advantage. The young man questions how long the girl is going to keep talking such nonsense. The girl gets irritated and says that she does not even want the boy to be with them, because she knows what the young man is hiding from them. While fleeing, Wong stops to rest. So Yoon asks if he is unwell because of the stab wound he received at the homeless shelter. A man asks the homeless man where he is in pain. The homeless man says that he has broken ribs and tried to hide that information. Yang-woo hides in a store with the girl and she comments that this situation feels like something that has already happened, because being hidden there reminds her of when they were escaping from the cable car, and she questions how something like this could happen and why it had to happen to them. Then she says that she will never forget what she is experiencing on this trip. Yang-woo in turn comments that he was excited for the school excursion. However, those creatures ruined everything. Right after, he stands up saying that he is handling the situation well, and that he thought fear would make someone weak, but he remembers Kim-ju who tried to fight one of those monsters. Then, Yang-woo enters a burning building, where the air is extremely suffocating. The boy thinks that the place appears to be clean, but someone had called for help, meaning that there were still some monsters there, but the problem was that the structure was too complex to locate them. So Yeon appears behind him, saying that she will go with him. The soldier tells the elderly woman to wait for reinforcements at that location. Choi Han tells Bak Mei that there are some buildings around where they might find their friends, and the boy, in turn, says that he is sure they will find them. Inside the burning building, the protagonist encounters a monster crawling on the ground and decides to burn it. Some creatures are still moving, but apparently most of them have already been burned. Yang-woo comments that the place does not seem to be dangerous anymore. so Yeon shows fear at seeing those burned infected. The young man then tells her that if she feels uncomfortable, she can leave whenever she wants, and that he will let her know if he finds their friends. But the girl responds that she is fine staying there. After that, she wonders if Baek Mai is hiding in an empty room. Yang Woo says that he believes they will find him if they follow that trail of fire. Then the girl asks if his friend and Choi Han are okay. The protagonist says he hopes so because if they are in trouble, they might have to burn them too. As he walks, the young man thinks about how he does not want to have to do the same thing he did with Kim Joo. Right after, the teenagers come across a soldier lying on the ground. The boy comments that this might be the soldier who called for help. As they approach the man, he tells the young people to run away, because it was a trap to lure people from his base. After that, a creature appears in the hallway. Yang Woo quickly turns to defend himself but ends up being attacked by the monster. A soldier stands in front of a building and wonders what kind of structure it has. Then he removes his mask because he is feeling suffocated. The man stops in front of the door and questions whether he will have to enter the building, and he starts feeling uneasy about it. After that, the protagonist ends up paralyzed in front of the monster, and he realizes that the creature is reacting to the virus in his body. So he decides to take advantage of the situation and burn the monster with his flamethrower. So Yeon asks if the young man is okay. The soldier lying on the ground tells the teenagers to run away because that alone will not be enough to take down the creature, and he tells them to go to the lower floor because the rest of the soldiers from the base are there. The girl then helps the protagonist walk so they can get out of that place. The infected tries to attack them, but the man uses his flamethrower to slow it down. As they go down the stairs, So Yeon asks again if her friend is okay. Yang Woo replies that they need to focus on getting out of the building first. When they reach the lower floor, the two come across a person kneeling on the ground. It is Min Ju, and So Yeon approaches her, asking where the other girls are. The protagonist sees the situation from afar and tells his friend to come back because something seems off. Min Ju then stands up, revealing that she is now one of the infected. Seeing her friend's state, So Yeon begins to remember moments with her. The infected then lunges at the girl to attack her. However, Yang Woo reacts quickly and burns the creature. The girl starts crying at the sight of the situation. The protagonist, in turn, tells his friend not to look at it. So Yeon turns away and starts wiping her tears. The boy begins to feel pity because the two friends used to go out together. Even so, the girl cannot hold back her tears and starts crying again. Right after, that monster appears again in the hallway. Yang Woo wonders if the creature is tracking them because of his blood. The young people realize that they are surrounded. After that, the boy tells So Yeon to stay behind him. The girl asks what he is going to do, and he, in turn, replies that he will try to use the flamethrower on the monster. When pointing the weapon at the creature, the protagonist realizes that it appears to be afraid, and he wonders if the monster knows that the flamethrower he is holding could hurt it. Right after, he senses that inside the infected's mouth, there is a virus. However, Baek Mai's group appears to save them, shooting and throwing Molotov cocktails. Choi Han orders the teenagers to get out of there immediately. However, Yang Woo decides to use his flamethrower on the monster, because burning other parts of the monster's body was useless, and they needed to hit the virus directly. And to do that, you would need to get close to the creature's face, just like before. The infected starts to flee, and the protagonist tries to follow it. But a soldier grabs the young man by the arm, questioning where he got that flamethrower. He in turn responds that he found it in a place with dead men. After that, the boy says that he almost killed that creature earlier, and that if they did not act at that moment, it would become harder to kill it. Choi Han asks Yang Woo to hand over the flamethrower to him, and he asks the soldier how many bullets he can fire in a single shot. The man replies that a cartridge holds 6 bullets, and that he has already fired 4. The young man then understands that he will have to resolve the situation with only 2 shots. Then the group starts climbing the stairs looking for the monster. Choi Han tells the soldier that if they let this infected live any longer, the elderly woman on the upper floor could end up in danger too, and the reinforcements had not yet arrived to rescue her. The man says that the young man is right, but he needs to be careful. Baek Mai runs past the group and Choi Han asks where he is going. The boy says that he will set a trap for that thing because it might escape again upon seeing the flamethrower. Right after, Yang Woo says that he thinks he knows where the monster is. Baek Mai runs up to the infected and throws a Molotov cocktail at it. The creature tries to attack him, but Choi Han quickly appears, using the flamethrower. The young man thinks that this time is different because he already knows how those monsters work, but it seems that this one has completely fused with the human. Yang Woo says that attacking the infected's body is useless because the virus is hidden inside its mouth. Choi Han then starts following the protagonist's advice. However, he ends up being struck in the chest by the creature. Han is kneeling, hiding in a room, and a soldier enters, asking if she's okay. Seeing that Choi Han is being attacked, the soldiers decide to shoot the monster. Even while being stabbed, the man still manages to fire his last bullet. However, he knows that he still needs to get closer to the creature to cause any damage. After burning the infected, the group reaches Choi Han and asks if he is okay. The man, in turn, tells the others to stay away because that monster is still alive. Then he tells the group that he needs a weapon because he is going to stay there and die along with the infected, using those oil tanks. Baek Mi asks what the man is saying as he had promised to help him find Hong Mei. Choi Han says that it is impossible to help anyone in his condition, and that the moment they remove that thing from him, he will die. Yang Wu apologizes to the man, saying that it is all his fault. The man says that the young man does not need to apologize because he is only alive thanks to him. If it were not for those teenagers, he would have given up a long time ago. After that, the monster starts moving again. Then the soldier hands his weapon to Choi Han, saying that he is happy to have met him. Right after, a group begins to flee in the direction where the girls had run. Seeing that Choi Han is sacrificing himself, Baek Mai starts crying. Since the creature is still not dead, the man reloads his weapon for the final shot. Before firing, he remembers the day he was separated from his fiancée. The man ends up crying, knowing that soon he will meet her again. While escaping, the group encounters Hannah and the soldier. Baek Mai quickly asks where the others are. The girl starts running desperately, but her friend continues following her. After the girl falls to the ground, the boy asks where the rest of her friends are. Hannah starts crying, saying that it was not her fault. Baek Mai, in turn, questions what she is talking about. The soldier who found the girl comments that apparently she was the only one who survived, because he had checked the area and did not find anyone else. The girl explains that from the beginning, she did not agree to leave the bus because it was too dangerous. However, they all decided to leave because of the boy, and she says that everything that happened was Baek Mai's fault. Right after, the boy goes to the room where Hannah was and finds a girl collapsed on the floor. So-gyeon tells her friend that the young man tried too hard to find the girls. The boy asks what happened to Hong Mei, and she in turn reveals that their friend had been attacked by a monster. Upon finding Hong Mei's body, the teenager begins to cry while apologizing. Yang Wu returns to where Huang is and tells him about how he found his friends and about Choi Han's sacrifice. The homeless man in turn comments that those who are left behind must survive with all their strength. After that, the protagonist asks Hannah why she ran away earlier. The girl remembers when she and her friends got off the bus, and the driver told them they would regret it. Right after, she says that after everything she went through, she could no longer trust anyone. After the girls got off the bus, they ended up being chased by a monster. However, they managed to reach a safe place and close the door. Minju asks the others if they are okay. After a while, the girls decide to go out to find something to set on fire, but they end up being attacked by another creature. However, it was eliminated before it could touch Minju. Hong Mei asks if her friend had been infected. However, the girl assures them that she had not been touched by the monster. Hannah tells her friends that at that moment, they truly believed she had not been infected, but they were completely wrong, because Minju lied to them pretending to be normal. Yang Wu starts to think that this was actually the incubation period since no immediate changes happen if someone touches the infected, and that in a situation like that, anyone would definitely deny being contaminated by the virus. Right after, the protagonist explains to Hannah that it was the incubation period, and he comments that in the place where they were, many people were in that condition, feeling as if they were not infected. After that, he tells her that if she survived the attack from those creatures, then she should thank Baek Mai, because if he had not brought the soldiers to that building, those monsters would never have let the girl escape alive. Hannah, in turn, begins to remember how Hong Mei cried, saying that the boy would come to save them. Meanwhile, Yang Wu begins to wonder if there are more infected like the one in the building, and he finds it curious that it fled when it was sure the protagonist would be able to kill it. Then he questions whether he can face other creatures in that manner. After that, Hannah comments that they had promised to meet there again. The boy, in turn, wonders what she is talking about. The girl then says that ever since the signal returned, the girls have been sharing information, and apparently, the best place to be was Namsan Tower. In front of it, there were several restaurants, so there was enough food, and most importantly, it was isolated from everything. And she says that if she had not been found, she would have gone there. So Yeon, in turn, tells her that there was nothing in the group chat. However, Hannah says it was another group that Kang Ji had created without including the boys. Right after, the soldiers arrive, escorting the elderly woman who is in the building, and the man asks to bring Baek Mai to where they are as well. The boy tells the others that soon they will be leaving for the shelter, but the protagonist says that he does not want to go to the safe place. And the man says that he cannot allow that because his job is to take care of them. So Yeon joins the conversation, saying that their friends are near Namsan Tower, so they need to go there immediately. To try to convince the guard to let them go, the girl says that they will return soon. The man, in turn, allows it. However, he asks that one of his soldiers accompany the children. Before leaving, Soo-yeon asks if Yang Woo is okay, since his arm had been attacked by one of those creatures. The soldier begins urging the teenagers to hurry because they need to leave now. Then the protagonist says that he believes he can avoid the virus and reach the tower. Baek Mi appears, asking if the group is leaving, and he says he will go with them because he is going to kill all that virus. As they walk onto the street, the soldier escorting the teenagers asks if they are crazy for going to such a faraway place. So Yeon tells the man that they are worried about their friends, which is why they are heading to the tower. The young man in turn comments that they are lucky to have an escort because without it, they wouldn't get very far. Yang Woo looks at his arm and notices that his wound is healed, making him wonder what else the virus is doing to his body. Then the group sees smoke coming from the parking lot. When they go up to the area, they discover that all the cars there are on fire. However, the protagonist realizes that he can now clearly sense the presence of the monsters and that the parking lot is filled with them. The boy then warns the others that they need to leave immediately. An infected appears before the group, but Baek Mei quickly hits it with a Molotov cocktail. The man gets irritated and asks if the young man is crazy. However, the boy keeps trying to burn as many infected as possible. After eliminating all the creatures, Baek Mei continues walking toward the tower. He tells the teenagers that every squad has someone like him and then asks them to keep following him, because he won't do anything if one of them dies acting like their friend. Hannah takes advantage of the stop to inform the group that they are getting close to the tower. While walking, Baek Mei starts to remember when he found Hongmi's body. Yang-woo approaches the boy, saying that he knows how he feels and asks if it wouldn't be better to avoid danger. But the young man replies that he can't keep avoiding those monsters and that killing every one of them on sight is the only way to stay safe. Then he asks how long the protagonist plans to keep running away. Yang-woo then tells him that he can continue doing things his way, but if he ever gets infected alone, he should remember not to hurt any of them. Baek Mei, in turn, starts to think that his friend is beginning to irritate him. As the group continues climbing toward the tower, the soldier talks to the girls about where they are from. After that, the man comments that the teenagers are very kind, since they are heading to a dangerous place just to find their friends. So Yeon laughs and thanks the man for the compliment. Right after, the soldier hears a noise coming from the bushes and quickly aims his weapon, but it's only a squirrel. The man sighs in relief upon seeing that it's just an animal and tells the kids that there's nothing to worry about. So Yeon and the protagonist laugh at the situation, and the soldier is frustrated that the girl is talking to that boy who cried like a girl. After a while, the girl starts looking at the scenery, and Yang-woo asks what she is doing since they need to hurry. The girl replies that she just wants to have a good memory of that place, because they should have been taking beautiful pictures there with their friends if nothing had happened. The protagonist remains silent and starts imagining his class taking a selfie at that spot. Then So-yeon comments that it's funny how they worked so hard to escape the tower and now they are going back there, and that she hopes Hannah is telling the truth and that the place is actually safe so that she doesn't have to see more people dying in front of her. Yang-woo tells the girl that everything will be fine and if the others are in the tower, it's probably safe. Even so, the girl says she is worried because as soon as they are safe again, everything will start all over. The young man in turn says that they should think about that when they get there. Right after, the two hear screams coming from the front group. When they go to check, they discover that the path is blocked by the virus cells. The soldier wonders why there are so many monsters there. Seeing the situation, Baek Mei grabs a Molotov cocktail and asks the others to step aside. After burning the creatures, the group finally reaches Namsan Tower. The man tells the teenagers to look around because there might be some cells up there as well. However, inside the location, a massive creature is waiting for the group. Before continuing, Yang-woo suddenly feels a strange sensation and looks back. So Yeon asks if everything is okay with him. The boy replies that everything is fine and that they can keep going. But even so, he wonders what that strange feeling he just had was. Then the soldier observes the staircase and Hwang asks what he is looking at. The man replies that he is checking the condition of the cells because it's possible to estimate when and how many cells will spread. For example, if the virus goes a long time without finding a host, the cell's color becomes muddy and its movements slow down. And those on the stairs appear to have been without a host for at least 2 days. After hearing that, Hwang asks if the place is safe. The soldier says it is better compared to areas where the virus is still active, but in places like this, there are usually no infected cats or rats. After that, he explains that when the hosts are small, the cells try to merge again to hunt more humans to use as food. The infected are constantly searching for the energy source needed for cellular mutation, but if they do not find something new to eat, they start fusing with each other. Those creatures are developing survival instincts. Then he wonders why his soldier and the children have not contacted them yet. At the tower, the group is trapped as there are monsters outside. The man says that it does not seem like anyone is in the area, but Hannah insists that her friends must be at Namsan Tower. The soldier gets irritated and says that this is the tower and that this was probably all a trick. After that, the group encounters a creature inside the building. While they flee, the man asks the teenagers to contact their friends, but the girl says she has been unable to reach them since they arrived. The soldier says that if they cannot get in touch with their friends, they will start descending the mountain. Yang-woo asks the man to wait because they have not even checked the other floors yet. However, the man says they should already be grateful for having climbed this far. The protagonist then asks to be allowed to check the lower floors and promises not to put the group in danger. And the soldier, in turn, says that he will accompany him and that the others should wait. Upon reaching the lower floor, they do not find any cells. The boy asks the man to stay there because he will explore the floor, and the man laughs, asking if the young man has a death wish. While the teenagers wait on the stairs, So Yeon asks Hannah if she has managed to contact anyone, and says that she will try calling them, as something might have happened. Baek Mei decides to check the upper floor again. His friend comments that the man had asked them to wait on the stairs. The boy says that he is not going to take orders from a soldier, and that he will be back soon. Upon reaching the upper floor, the young man starts searching the restaurants for materials to make more Molotov cocktails, because just a few were not enough to stop those monsters, so he needed a bigger fire. Then the boy ends up finding an ATM. On the stairs, So Yeon becomes worried and says that they should not separate like this, but she hopes they find their friends safe. Hannah, in turn, says that it will never happen because none of her friends are there. So Yeon asks the girl if she knows where the others are, but she does not answer. The young woman starts to panic and says that she will go find Yang-woo, but her friend grabs her arm and tells her not to do that because the others will not accept it. After that, she explains that her friends told her not to bring anyone else, and that only they could go, so they should leave immediately. The protagonist asks the soldier why he is talking like that, and the man, in turn, laughs, saying that the young man must think he's easy to fool. Then he asks if the boy really thought he would simply believe everything he said, and that the story about him going out to look for his friends was a lie. After that, he says that Yang-woo is acting this way because he's afraid to go to the shelter, and then he points his gun at the young man, asking if he wants to die. The boy falls to the ground, begging for forgiveness, saying that he made a mistake, but the soldier starts laughing and says he was just joking with the teenager. Then he comments that if he really wanted to shoot the protagonist, he would have done it a long time ago, and he asks Yang-woo to remember when they first met and how he saved his life, so the young man should start treating him well. The boy stays on the ground, thinking about how he does not remember the man saving him before. After that, he warns the soldier to be careful because a monster is approaching. Meanwhile, Hannah continues trying to force So-yeon to go with her to meet her friends, but the girl keeps insisting that they should wait for the others. Then the two hear a scream coming from the lower floor, and the girl wonders what it was. Hannah starts crying, saying that her colleague also betrayed her. Then she pushes her down the stairs. On the lower floor, Yang-woo and the soldier find the fallen colleague and tell her to get up quickly. As she gets up, she comes face to face with her friend, who is the first to be infected in the cable car. Hannah starts running away from that place and reaches a parking lot door, begging the others to open it for her. The soldier orders the teenagers to run away from that creature. While fleeing, Yang-woo remembers that Lee Tae-in advised him to stay still the next time he encountered an infected person, as he would learn a lot from it. After shaking off the monster, the protagonist tells the others that the man had escaped to the lower floor. Then the boy asks where Hannah was. So Yeon, in turn, says that their colleague was in shock and ran away. A young man approaches Hannah, asking how things were outside, and she responds that there were still many cells. The teenager then says that at least they were still safe there, because that place even had a restaurant with some supplies. After that, the boy leaves and tells his colleague to call if she needs help. Hannah, on the other hand, starts questioning why the young man was being so friendly with her. Soon after, a girl approaches her, asking if her cell phone still had battery. The girl questions what she wants with her phone, and the colleague asks if she could borrow it, as her battery had run out. However, Hannah replies that she would not lend it because her battery was also running low. Even so, the girl insists that they should check her phone, otherwise, they couldn't trust her. The young woman, in turn, questions why she should let them look at her phone, and the teenager says that if she didn't lend it, they would throw her out. Upon checking Hannah's phone, the girl discovers photos of Hong-mei dead, and then she gets scared and asks what happened to their colleague. Hannah tries to justify herself, saying that it was not what they were thinking. A boy appears in the middle of the confusion, asking what they should do with the food because if they left, it would be considered theft. The young woman starts hitting him because that didn't matter at that moment. The soldier, accompanied by the teenagers, appears saying that a notice had just arrived, and that if they went back with him, they would be able to reach the station. Due to complaints from an enro, the government would temporarily remove the blockades, and people were gathering at the bus station at that moment. If they managed to reach that location, the kids would be able to escape that hell and go back home. So Yeon takes advantage of the moment of tranquility to hug her friends. The girls ask if she knew when it happened to the other colleagues. The young woman in turn starts crying, saying that they didn't survive. Yang-woo starts thinking about how things would be if his friend were there too. Soon after, the boy approaches the protagonist, apologizing for earlier. The boy, in turn, asks what he was talking about, and the young man explains that he was apologizing for not opening the door for his colleague earlier. Then he says that they had been isolated there for so long that fatigue was making everyone stressed. Yang-woo, in turn, responds that it was okay because during that time he had seen worse things outside. The young man laughs and says that he can't even imagine the things his friend went through in the city. Meanwhile, on the stairs, Hannah starts crying because those girls didn't even let her explain the photos on her phone, making her furious and wondering why they did that. Baek Mai takes the opportunity to search for something he can use in the restaurants. That girl appears, asking what he was stealing and commenting that she almost mistook him for a thief. The boy asks if the young woman was looking for trouble and tells her she should be more careful with what she says. After that, he asks why that group was carrying so many alcoholic beverages. The teenager explains that those were the bottles Kang Jae had secretly brought on the trip, and that to prevent people from finding out they had those drinks, she started carrying them around. Soon after, the girl realizes that Baek Mai was making Molotov cocktails and asks who taught him how to do that, but he refuses to answer. The young woman, in turn, comments that since he was using her bottles, at least she wanted to know was who taught him. Baek Mai ends up remembering Choi Han and responds that he learned it from someone he knew. After that, the soldier asks everyone to gather because they would leave before sunset. So Yeon starts getting agitated because she can't find Hannah. Meanwhile, the girl is face to face with her infected colleague. A girl approaches So Yeon, asking why Hannah had changed so much in high school. The young woman then recalls when some guys from the class stole their colleague's diary, and in it, she had written that she wished everyone in the class would die. When the girl found out, she became furious. Sometime later, the boys told her what the girl had written in the diary. However, their conversation is interrupted by the group, who were being chased outside. Upon returning to the building, Yang Wu tells the others that they should be careful. As the group walks past a staircase, the protagonist gets another shiver. After going upstairs, they come across Hannah, who is trying to lock herself away from her infected friend. The girl tries to communicate with her colleague but gets no response. Then the creature starts slipping through the gaps in the door, and the young woman tries to move away as much as possible. Baek Mi goes to help his colleague and wonders how that monster could still be there, as he was sure they had already burned it. When he hits the creature with a Molotov, it starts writhing in pain but remains standing. After that, the boys are shocked because the monster had separated itself from the burning part on its own. Right after, the infected one starts running away and screams upon hearing that the group was about to throw another Molotov cocktail. As they follow the monster's trail, Baek Mi comments that its scream gave him chills. The soldier wonders if those things now had the ability to attack with ultrasonic waves. Yang Wu, in turn, notices that the cells in his hand are reacting, and he wonders if the creature was calling for reinforcements. Hannah begs the boys to take her with them. Baek Mi questions how she had the audacity to ask for help after leaving them behind. The girl responds that she was following Kang Ju's orders, who had made it clear that the boys were not welcome. Right after, the young man asks why she had pictures of Hong Mei on her phone. Hannah starts getting nervous and ends up not answering. The soldier points his gun at the girl and says that if she leaves, he will shoot her. Baek Mi finds the man's actions strange and questions what he was doing. The soldier, in turn, says that it was too late to save her because she might have already been touched by that monster, and that it wasn't worth risking the lives of 10 uninfected and uninjured people just to save someone who might be carrying the virus. Hannah starts begging them not to do anything to her and says she will tell them everything she knows about Hong Mei. Then she explains that she sent that picture to a group chat hoping to find someone who could help her. Even though their colleague denied being infected, Yang Wu realizes that it was already too late. After that, he tells the others that the young woman had come into contact with some of the monster's cells. While she was holding the door shut, she had been touched. Baek Mi asks when the protagonist saw that happen. The soldier, with his gun still aimed at the girl, asks the teenager if he is sure of what he is saying. Yang Wu confirms the story and says that they should leave her there because they were also in danger. However, the soldier decides to shoot Hannah to kill her. Baek Mi lunges at the man, questioning if he was crazy. The soldier fights back and tells the young man to let go of him or he would kill him too. Right after, he asks if the boy had any idea how many comrades he had lost because they hesitated in situations like that. The protagonist, in turn, is in shock as he sees his colleague's bullet-riddled body on the ground. After that, a monster appears, attracted by the sound of the gunshot, and the group decides to flee. Hannah uses her last strength to wish death upon the protagonist. When they return to the place where the other teenagers were, they discover that the location was on fire. The soldier starts shouting to try to locate someone. Baek Mi decides to confront Yang Wu, asking if he found it fun to accuse people he didn't like of being infected. The boy, in turn, responds that he never lied about someone having the virus. And the young man questions how he was so sure that Hannah was infected. Then the soldier orders them to stop arguing because it was not the time for that. The rest of the teenagers meet up with the boys' group. Yang Wu asks his colleague what he would do if he were in his place, and if he knew everything, would he pretend not to know anything? Meanwhile, Hannah begins to be consumed by her infected friend. Even in that state, the girl still shows immense hatred toward her classmates. The protagonist continues asking Baek Mi if he would pretend not to know anything, even if it meant putting everyone else in danger. After hearing that, the boy gets irritated and says that's why he asked if the young man had actually seen her being infected. So-gyun arrives at the group asking if they had managed to find her friend. But upon seeing the protagonist's expression, she already realizes that Hannah did not survive. The soldier tells the young woman that they had no choice because Hannah had been infected. Baek Mi asks the man to tell the truth, that he shot her because Yang Wu said she was contaminated. However, the soldier tells the boy to shut up because the girl had already come into contact with one of those monsters. Then he asks if the teenagers really wanted to walk around with a ticking time bomb. That bespectacled teenager asks if that was true, but the protagonist remains silent and does not answer his question. After that, a girl tells them to forget about it and move on because that place was disgusting. Baek Mi asks if she would still say that if she were in Hannah's place, and the young woman in turn replies that it would never happen to her. Right after, Yang Wu starts sensing something approaching and tells everyone to run. Baek Mi asks what is happening, but when he looks back, he sees that the fusion of their infected colleagues is behind them. One of the girls ends up falling and begins to be consumed by the creature. The group tries to help her by throwing Molotov cocktails at the monster, and the protagonist warns that the bombs are useless because that thing can separate itself from the flames. While fleeing, the soldier tells the teenagers to focus on the monsters that were in their way. Even while shooting at the creatures, the man says they needed fire. One of the girls comes face to face with one of the infected, but is saved by that bespectacled young man. The girl gets up, saying that her colleague was just taking the opportunity to show off. Right after, the boy is attacked by that creature, and the young woman gets scared and decides to run away, leaving her friend behind. Before going after him, the infected Hannah says that he wasn't tasty enough, so he would die. Baek Mai says they should have killed the creature when they had the chance. After that, he says they will have to throw all the Molotov cocktails at once to damage that monster. Then the protagonist suggests using himself to stop the infected. While fleeing, the soldier keeps shooting the creatures ahead to protect the girls. So-yeon then grabs some trash bags that were lying around and asks for a lighter. Inside the building, the group watches as the creatures burn because of the flaming garbage. The man praises the young woman and says that now the creatures wouldn't be able to get near the door because of the fire. However, the downside was that they were now trapped inside. Hannah appears in front of the door and starts slipping through the cracks. Looking around the room, So-yeon notices that there was a kitchen in that place. After grabbing something to set on fire, the girl talks to her friend and says that if she comes in closer, it will burn her. The creature in turn says that the young woman was starting to irritate her. Right after, Yang-woo appears, calling the monster's attention, and it falls perfectly into the trap. Seeing that scene, So-yeon remembers when her colleague sacrificed himself so she could escape the cable car tower. The protagonist enters the building to try to distract the infected, but it still keeps chasing him. Before being used as bait, the boy had agreed with Baek Mai that they would use that structure, because when the monster reached the other side of the building, it wouldn't be able to see the exits. And that's when the group should take action and set the monster on fire. Baek Mai tells Yang-woo to hurry because he is about to ignite the corridor. After the protagonist passes through, the boy lights the flames, preventing the creature from crossing. On the other side of the corridor, Park Chu sets the fire and hopes the infected one dies there. Seeing that the monster had its back turned, Baek Mai throws a burning chair at it. Right after, Yang-woo advises them to leave. The girl praises the protagonist and says that his plan was really creative. However, the young man says that all of that was thanks to Baek Mai, because when he was abandoned in the cable car, he had to create a fire just like that one to survive. The boy then asks how his colleague managed to survive the fire. But before Yang-woo can answer, the fire suppression system is activated by the smoke. Right after, the group looks back and realizes that the creature had survived because of the water. However, So-yeon appears with a torch and defends her colleagues. Park Chu comments that the creature was quite persistent. The monster gets up, saying that it hurt a lot and that all that pain was the teenager's fault. After that, it says that it can no longer move and asks them to end its suffering. Baek Mai tells the infected one to stop pretending to be Hannah. Then, the creature starts saying the name of Han Mei. Upon hearing that, the boy is surprised by the name the monster is calling. Park Chu orders them to set that thing on fire already because it had killed their friends. Right after, the infected one says that she had trusted Han Mei, and then she lunges to attack So-yeon, but the protagonist throws himself in front to protect her. However, the creature does not attack, and Yang-woo wonders what this new sensation was, as it felt like his nerves were connected to the monsters, making him question if this was what Lee Tae was talking about. After that, the protagonist asks So-yeon to step away from behind him. Hannah starts saying that she can feel that the boy was infected just like her. Before the creature can say anything else, So-yeon uses a burning stick to set her on fire. As the monster burns, Yang-woo thinks about how much his hand is burning at that moment. Before being completely incinerated, Hannah reveals to everyone that the young man was infected and that there was no way to prevent it. Everyone in the group starts staring at their colleague with judgmental looks. Right after, the soldier points his gun at the protagonist and fires at him. Somewhere else, Seol asks Min if he heard that noise. The young man in turn responds that the girl should already be used to gunfire. However, what bothers the girl is that the shots came from Mamson Tower and the place was on fire. After that, she questions who they knew that would be dumb enough to do such a thing. Baek Mi jumps at the soldier and the man asks if he also wanted to die. So Yoon kneels beside the protagonist, worried if he's okay. Then the soldier punches the young man in the face and points his gun, saying that he never liked him from the start, and that he was going to fill him with bullets for touching him. After that, Yang-woo stands up and everyone wonders how he is still alive. The young man then points his finger at the soldier and says that they can kill him. Right after, several monsters appear, heading toward the man who tries to defend himself with his gun. So-yeon reaches the boy, asking how he is feeling, but she notices that his gaze is completely different. Yang-woo then ends up fainting and begins questioning how everything ended up this way, and that maybe none of this would have happened if they hadn't gone to Seoul. The squad finally arrives at the building to rescue the old woman. A soldier reports that all the virus cells in the surrounding area have been incinerated. Then he says that there were still teenagers in the building who mentioned that another group of survivors was at Namsan Tower. The man says that he doesn't know exactly where those people are, but that a soldier has already been sent to find them. After that, the young man reaches Hwang, asking if he would be okay if they left him there alone. And just the homeless man's look is enough to answer the soldier's question. The squad then decides to leave the location. Hwang starts walking through the structure and comments to himself that as long as there was a place to sleep, it could easily become his home. Right after, he starts looking for bottles of alcohol, but ends up coming across Choi-han's body. Then he decides to bury his colleague, saying that he was lucky to have someone to take care of him. After finishing that task, he remembers that he also had to bury Hongmei's body. Baek Mei and the others flee the tower while carrying the protagonist. So Yoon asks if that soldier would be okay. However, the boy says that she shouldn't care about that because he was getting what he deserved and that he would kill him if the man followed the group. After that, the young man wonders why all those monsters had only attacked the soldier. Right after, Park Chu asks everyone to wait because she couldn't stop thinking about what Hannah had said, and she asks if everyone also heard about Yang Woo being infected. After that, she suggests simply leaving the boy behind. While Hwang digs Hong Mei's grave, he comments that he didn't like the situation because it felt like he was a crazy person hiding bodies. Then the homeless man starts hearing a weak cry for help. Park Cho asks Baek Mei if he knows the reason why they didn't let the boys join them, and she explains that when they try to save all of their friends who end up in danger, one mistake is enough for everything to end. So the best thing the group can do is abandon the protagonist there. A person appears saying they will carry the boy. It was Seol, warning that if they wanted to leave Seoul, they should follow her. Seeing the girl, So Yeon is surprised. The young woman in turn tells her colleague to stop acting like they were close. While fleeing, the duo is asked why they are wearing those raincoats, and Min replies that there were no other clothes. Then the group uses a flame-throwing extinguisher to neutralize the creatures they encounter along the way. After arriving at the shelter, Min seals the door and the teenagers breathe a sigh of relief. Baek Mei asks how Seol knew where to find them. The young woman in turn responds that it was easy to find her colleagues because all she had to do was look for places that were on fire, but she comments that she didn't expect them to set Namsan Tower on fire. Min appears, asking if the boys managed to find Hong Mei. Baek Mei falls completely silent after hearing that question. So Yeon reveals that they found their colleague too late and that both Minju and Hannah didn't survive either. Min, in turn, comments that the situation was terrible. The girl tells them to stop talking about those things because they were killing the vibe, and she says that they needed to find a way to get to the station because the city's barricades were being lifted. Seol asks how they were going to get to the station and tells her colleague to check the map on her phone. The station was on the other side of the Han River, so to reach the place, they would have to cross the water, and even if they got to the station, they would still have to deal with the infected people. So she comments that without the protagonist, it was going to be more difficult. The girl starts laughing and says that protecting them was the soldiers' job. Seol in turn says that the soldiers would probably aim their flamethrowers at the young woman. Park Chu asks why the group wanted to take Yang Woo, who was infected with them. So Yeon becomes worried and wonders if her colleague will wake up. Min was researching on the internet and realizes that as the virus spread, only monsters were appearing without any cells. Baek Mei says that was normal because all the cells had transformed into creatures. The boy explains that they were no longer seeing cells with a nucleus and were only finding infected people who had managed to fuse. Seol explains that this meant the infection rate was decreasing, and that now the cells were acting like predators that needed to feed on people and were also changing their survival strategy. Baek Mei sees this as a good thing because now it would be easier to deal with the monsters. Right after, he starts telling Min about his encounter with a mutant version of a creature. The young woman wonders if the monsters can evolve into different forms and begins to believe that there might be things near the river that even the soldiers wouldn't be able to defeat. After that, she goes to the protagonist's room to ask if he still hadn't woken up, and she says that they had no way of taking care of the boy, but she hoped he would survive. Then she says that if they took him to the soldiers, they would burn his body, and she asks So Yeon to let her know when he wakes up. The girl in turn starts remembering how the boy became just like the infected, but she still hopes that Yang Woo will return to normal. Right after, she wonders if she was just pretending to be a good person, or if she still felt guilty for abandoning the young man in the tower that time. Min analyzes the map and says that if they can't cross the bridge, their route will become much longer, and she tells Baek Mei that they need to gather fuel. The young woman approaches Park Cho, asking if she really wanted to leave with the group, and she, in turn, responds that they didn't have a better option. But even so, the young woman says that doing it that way was stupid because there were soldiers everywhere, yet the boys were planning to go without anyone's help. Park Cho says that the group had mentioned that the soldiers were killing everyone as a preventive measure. However, her colleague doesn't believe it and says that the teenagers made that up to protect the protagonist. After that, the girl falls silent and asks what her friend intends to do. So Yeon is scrolling through her phone when she hears Yang Woo questioning where he is. The young woman then responds that they will go home together. Seol returns to the room just as the protagonist wakes up. The boy starts crying, thinking that at that moment, he was really going to die, and he thanks his colleague for not abandoning him there. So Yeon comforts her friend and tells him that everything's okay now. Then the whole group gathers in the room to see their companion, who had woken up. Baek Mei says that the boy is truly incredible because he thought he would never wake up. Yang Woo, in turn, thanks the boy for carrying him all the way there. Hearing that gratitude, the teenager feels embarrassed. After that, Park Cho enters the room saying that they could make a decision after asking the protagonist something, and then she asks him to be honest and say whether he was really infected. Her colleague gets irritated and says it's obvious that the boy will lie. Seol tells the girl to stop talking nonsense and asks her to step aside because she has a better question. The young woman asks the boy to answer without thinking and not just stand there staring with his eyes wide open. Right after, the girl questions whether the protagonist was also an immune person. The group searches a store for supplies but ends up finding nothing. Min tells them to check the back area because there might be something left. When they open the back door, they come across a monster, but the boys manage to burn the creature easily and take the supplies that were in the room. So Yeon helps the boys carry the food crates. Seol approaches Yang-woo, asking if he can also tell the difference between cells and monsters. The girl remembers that her colleague had mentioned meeting an immune person in the shelter, and that they talked about the cell's incubation period. Then she says that after seeing some inactive cells, she started thinking about a hypothesis, that the immune ones weren't truly free from the virus, but rather, the mutation wasn't being activated. Yang-woo answers his colleague's question, saying that he wasn't sure if he was immune, but he reveals that Lee Tae-in had told him that he was immune. A girl says she doesn't believe that story and asks if Baek Mai took it seriously. After that, she says that she thinks something is going on between Seol and the protagonist, because they are always talking alone. As they leave the store, Min says that now they are ready to leave Seoul, and that they just need to find some gasoline. Right after, the group encounters some vandals attacking a man. Seeing that, the young man says they should call the others and go back. At the shelter, the girl questions what they would do if they ran into those lunatics again. Meanwhile, Yang-woo looks at the wound caused by the gunshot he took, and he realizes that the cells had healed him again, just as they had done with the burn on his hand. After that, he thinks that it feels as if this thing is consuming him, and he starts worrying about what he is becoming. And then he decides that he needs to meet Lee Tae-in again. Seol enters the bathroom, questioning if the boy was looking at his wound, and then asks to see how it is. Min tells the others that Songju used people as bait when they were descending from Namsan, and that Seol ended up fighting with him because of that. So Yeon is walking down the corridor and hears the protagonist's conversation with his colleague. Yang-woo tells the young woman that for the others, it must be hard to understand his current situation, and he confesses that he is also confused. The girl tells the boy not to be reckless because he will have a hard time without her help, and she reveals that she also means the protagonist. Right after, she says that they will leave this city together, just as they promised that day, and she comments that it would be better if they left the others behind. Meanwhile, at Namsan Tower, the soldier is still alive and determined to kill Yang-woo for what he did. So Yen listens to the duo's conversation and thinks that it is normal because they are feeling betrayed, but the protagonist in turn says that they can't do that after the group helped him when he was on the brink of death. After that, he says that if they managed to cross the Han River, all of them could leave Seoul together, and he asks the girl not to talk about leaving anyone behind anymore. The young woman gets irritated and leaves the room, saying that the boy was acting like an idiot. The boys watch through the window as that group of vandals hunts monsters in the streets. Min says that the motorcycles those men were using could leave the creatures in the dust, and that maybe they could cross the river with one of them. However, Baek Mai comments that if they were all going to cross together, they would need more motorcycles. Right after, the boy asks where Yang-woo is, and so Yeon says she believes he is in the bathroom. After that, Min suggests taking the motorcycle and fetching one person at a time, but the girl doesn't listen to the plan and keeps thinking that Seol preferred leaving the others behind. Those vandals find a burning building and question who did that. One man quickly understands that there were people hiding nearby and stealing supplies. Hwang sits beside Hong Lee's bed and wonders why no one checked if the girl was alive. However, he starts saying that maybe the young woman was infected, and in that case, anyone would hesitate to approach her. Then he questions whether the girl really had the virus and if that was why the soldiers were burning everyone. Even so, the homeless man comments that the girl shouldn't have been left alone like that. After that, two teenagers enter the room and are shocked by the old man's presence, as they thought the building was empty. Hwang says he doesn't live in the building, but he had already checked around and found no supplies. Right after, the boys notice the girl lying on the bed and say they had a moral obligation to help her. However, the man simply tells the teenagers to leave without causing any trouble. Then one of the boys comments that the bum was acting like a grumpy old tyrant, and that maybe it would be better to teach him a lesson. Wang wonders if he can handle those guys since he was still injured from the stabbing he took. But before the boys can do anything, that soldier returns and shoots them without hesitation. Then the man asks the homeless man if the kids have returned yet. The bum, confused by the situation, replies that the teenagers were with the boy. Then he starts feeling a bad premonition about the man. The soldier then asks if the teenagers still hadn't come back. Wang replies that they hadn't and that he was also waiting for them while taking care of Hong Mei. The man asks if there was a way to contact them, and the bum replies that he doesn't have a phone, just like everyone else. Right after, the homeless man starts thinking of ways to get the soldier out of there and decides to tell him about a refugee shelter, explaining that the kids had mentioned they were heading there. The soldier asks for more details about this place, and Wang says that it was a shelter at Seoul Station, and that it was the place where he and the others had come from. The man then says he would go straight to this supposed shelter, but he comments that maybe it would be better to take the old man and the girl with him. The bum stands up and agrees with the idea since it was becoming increasingly dangerous for him there. After that, the homeless man tells him about a car with keys that he saw in a parking lot. The soldier then decides to go look for this vehicle. Huang quickly grabs Hong Ame and says that the man was looking at him like a lunatic, believing it would be better to stay away from him. However, the soldier corners the old man and says he had already checked the parking lot on the way. Meanwhile, a YouTuber is making videos at the Han River to show the facts to the public. The young man comments that he and his cameraman went through a lot of trouble to get there without being noticed. As they walk through the area, they document everything they see. Right after, he decides to show the state of the Han River and explains to his viewers that his companion has a flamethrower in case something happens. The men record all the cells they find along the way and are surprised by their size. The young man's friend starts getting scared and asks if they are really going to keep going. And the YouTuber, in turn, says yes, because this was a content goldmine. After that, the boy comments that they had already checked the area and found none of those monsters, just a bunch of cells. However, the young man keeps recording for his fans and lies, saying that maybe they will find a fused creature. Unbeknownst to them, a monster is watching them from the water in the river. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's channel.